Okay.
Okay. Welcome to the Beverly School Committee's Curriculum Instruction and Student Life meeting. Tonight is Wednesday, February 12th, and we are meeting in a hybrid remote model using a remote meeting application allowing for remote participation for public access to the open portions of our meeting. BevCam is streaming and broadcasting our meeting tonight, so thank you, BevCam. Beginning on June 16th, 2021, with the Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, which were twice extended and now further extended until March 31st, 2025, local government and boards were granted provisions to, among other things, hold meetings remotely by suspending the need for a quorum and chair to be physically present. Joining us today are members of the school committee and various members of the district administration and leadership teams. We will conduct a full roll call attendance in a moment for the record, since the meeting application does not sometimes display all participants. Please remember that any audio video you supply on this platform will become part of the meeting record. As such, please use your mute functionality to prevent background noises. I would like to ask President Abel to conduct a roll call to ensure you can both see and hear me this evening, and then we'll turn it over to Dr. Flaherty.
Thank you so much, Ms. Robinson. I'm going to start with our remote users. I have just seen our resident representative, Ryan Redmond, join us. We are also joined online by Katie Kraft and Patty Spanks. Thank you so much for confirming that you can hear us and we can hear you. Ryan, you're on mute if you just want to confirm, and Patty, if you just want to confirm as well.
Hi, present.
Okay, great, perfect.
Present.
Awesome, great. Okay, that's working out perfectly. In the room, we're joined by Casey Fiore, who is one of our teacher representatives.
Present.
And one of our student representatives, Achul Deng.
Present.
In person. We have Derek Brennan joining us and Dr. Flaherty.
Present.
And we have Karen Robinson, of course, and I'm Rachel Abel. We're also joined by Dr. Churchek.
Here.
And in the back, we have Mark Thomas, Lisa Oliver, Aaron Brown, Julie Smith, and Amy Blanchard. And our student rep, Sadie Brennan, is also here. You're welcome to be Dr. Silva, if you'd like. And we have on Dr. Andre Morgan. Okay, full house. I think that's who I'm capturing right now. We're also joined online by my alter ego, which is myself, and Dr. Flaherty for her slide presentation purposes. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Let's see. Sadie, can you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome everybody. This is just a copy of our agenda for those people that are watching remotely. We'll be reviewing our minutes, hear from our students about the goings-on at the middle school and the high school. We'll give you an update on attendance from our 2 makeup days. Mr. Thomas is here to present his draft changes for the program of studies at Beverly High School. We have a district-wide overview of MCAS, and then if we don't run out of time, we have 3 policies to review. So we'll start with the approval of the minutes from the January 8th, 2025 meeting. And we need to start with a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting records that were presented to us from our meeting of January 8th.
Second.
If the motion's been made and seconded, and say no, could you call it for
Sure. I don't know which order it is on the form. I don't know if that's in the minutes form, but let's just go around the room. We'll do it in that order. So these are the meeting records from the last meeting. You were present, and would you vote to approve them? We're doing roll call because some members are online.
Cool, yes.
Okay, so Casey Fiore, yes. Atchel,
Abstain.
abstain. Sadie
Yes.
and Derek.
Yes.
Karen Robinson,
Yes.
Rachel Abel, yes. And then online, we have Patty Spanks,
Yes.
Katie Kraft,
Yes.
and Ryan Redmond. I think I heard a quick yes there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 with 1 abstention. Okay, thank you.
One of the most important parts of the night, we want to hear from our students. There's a lot of things going on in town and college visits, so we have 2 students, but we have 1 representative from each level. So, Jill, will you start by telling us about the notes?
Good evening, everyone. So far, this new month has been great. In Balch, we started a new civics unit on the foundations of government, which has been really interesting. We've been learning about the early stages of our government and how it has evolved over time. As I mentioned in previous meetings, our red carpet dance is coming up at the end of the month, and we are all super excited for this event. I'm sure I speak for the most of the 8th graders when I say we're really looking forward for one of our last middle school dances. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sadie from the high school.
Good evening, everybody. This month at the high school has been really exciting too. The quarter and the semester are coming to a close this week. We have midterms going throughout this week. Tomorrow is the last day. On Friday, we have the BHS Career Day, where each grade will take part in a different event to hopefully get a better understanding of what they might want to look into for their future. I know personally I'm a junior, so we're going to be sitting in on some seminars where professionals will talk to us about what they do and how every day their life is in their profession. So I'm really excited about that. And then the Addams Family Musical at the high school has just started selling their tickets. You should definitely go check those out. I think they go on the stage in March. And then also, I'm very excited to be a part of a group of girls who is leaving this Friday from BHS for Italy for a women's empowerment trip. So we're going to be meeting with a ton of powerful women in Italy and seeing what they do every day. So that's another really great opportunity for some BHS students. Thank you.
That trip sounds amazing. I wanted to sneak into somebody's suitcase.
I know everyone's very excited.
For the career fair, will the seniors be able to attend to, like in maybe trying to find connections for internship? Do you know?
So they did it last year. So they found their internship connections, a lot of them then, which was really good. This year, I'm pretty sure they're presenting their Reach slideshows, if I know that. Yeah.
Any questions for our students? Great, thank you. And as usual, you know that we love if you will stay and participate, but we also know that there's midterms, and if you need to go study or if you have work that you need to go home and do, we understand that as well. Good luck with those last tests. Okay, the next thing, we just wanted to give you an update on our makeup days, and we'll continue to do that at the end of each of them. January 25th, we're hovering right around the low 60 mark, so it was pretty consistent with our first makeup day. For students, our staff attendance, even though the flu has hit our staff pretty hard, the 25th the attendance was very high, 94.6% for teachers and 92.1% for our paras. You'll see that the impact, it was a little bit lower, but still excellent for February 8th. And this is, the absence really was pretty much flu-related for the actual call-in sick that day. And wanted to highlight, it was up a little bit. We were up to 62% for student attendance, and wanted to point out 3 really significant increases. One, and both the principals are here with us, so congratulations on the work that you and your staff are doing to bring kids to school. BHS had a 16.3% increase, which was really good because it brought them over the 50% mark. Centerville had a 10% increase in attendance, so they've almost reached the 70% mark. And I have to keep shouting out that McEwen because their attendance has been over 70% for each day. So I want to invite Mr. Thomas to come up, and I'll move through your slides if you want to talk through your changes. Well, he's coming. We just started. It's always good to remind ourselves of the vision of Beverly High School graduate. A graduate is a problem solver who thinks critically and communicates effectively. The graduate exhibits responsibility and empathy in attitude and behavior. The graduate understands the importance of inclusivity and community engagement. And the graduate pursues a post-secondary plan that supports the student's skills and interests. And I think you'll see that even just through the changes that we're only looking at, the program of studies is 100 pages long if you looked at the whole thing. We're just talking about proposed changes, and you'll see that many of them support the initiatives of our Portrait of a Graduate.
Thanks, Dr. Flaherty. Before I get into proposed changes, I did want to update CISL and anybody in attendance for something I brought to the group last year and continue to work on with our faculty this year. And that's our movement towards ninth grade leveling or removing levels. And about a month ago, I made the decision that we weren't quite in a space to carry that out in a way that was going to be beneficial to the students. I felt like I was not quite in a great spot to put our faculty in the best position to roll this out. So we are, at this point, backing off of that. So that would be something that would be in the program of studies for this upcoming year, so I just wanted to note that. There's no mention of that in here, but that would be coming forward. So, with that being said, just to go into our changes, as usual, the usual clerical updates with dates, alignments, formatting, that type of thing throughout. And as you go into the first section around high school completion, that's the noted addition is new language around the competency determination with the elimination of MCAS as a graduation requirement. The language in there talks about how we determine, how we get to the competency determination for each student, and just knowing that this is here now, and we will have to update going forward as we get more guidance from DESE, and that's noted in there as well.
Mark, just to refresh their memory, we went through your changes for competency determination at the last meeting.
Yes, yep.
And then school committee will end up having to vote on that as well. And you will receive a copy of the slides tomorrow, just so that you don't feel like you have to try to write all of this down.
And along with that, I think you'll receive like a one-pager on the changes too. That's a little more straightforward. So, as we go into the preparing for future through college and career planning, we did add information about our early college partnership pathway, which we are in the planning stages of that grant right now, hoping to get approval for the grant to go forward in the fall. So that's pending right now. So that's, I did put some language in there that we're working on that. So as that hopefully gets approved, we'll update that information. Next, as you look at courses of study, that's basically your list of all of our courses and the credits that they bear. Those updates are made throughout, and those are in depth within the course descriptions. So first up would be with business and computer tech. We're talking about, we moved economics over from history, so that now falls under business and computer technology. The CAD class will not be offered this coming year. That's an every other year type of setup, and we're revamping that course along with some of our other computer classes. And the classes that will be offered this year that are on a rotating basis, Accounting 2 and Business Management and Globalization. Moving on to career education, we have revamped My Future and Career Success as a class. That's now the entry point and the launching point for our pathway students. They'll take that in 10th grade. And we do leave that open for any other interested students, but it's as part of our designated pathway for all 4 pathways. Moving on to English, we did add a grammar course. We're excited about that, and
Is that going to be mandatory?
so is our president.
Is that a mandatory class?
It is not. That will be a 2.5 credit elective. So Ms. Ferrari really worked hard on putting that together, and we're excited to.
What are you doing to build the excitement for kids to want to
So,
take that class?
well, you mentioned excitement. We actually have a course excitement week every year. And
Excellent.
so that's when teachers talk through, what students may be taking the next year, kind of talk up those different electives. So it's an opportunity to get in-depth information from the teachers in those subject areas. Popular music 2 are not offered in this year they're on a rotating basis, so it's their off year. And then within fine arts, visual arts, graphic design, we went from 5 credits to 2.5 credits, trying to generate larger numbers in there. We felt like that with the 5 credit, it didn't allow for students to enroll in that had other classes they wanted to get to as well. With history and social studies, as I said, economics is now under business and computer tech. And this year on the rotation, criminal justice and history of Beverly and Essex County will be offered. Within math and ROTC, there are no changes. With science, engineering, and applied technology, we will be offering environmental science and continuing, that's coming off a 2-year rotation because it's now part of one of our pathways, so that'll be offered every year. And then in wellness, EMR and international foods are on the cycle to be in this year. And finally, last subject area, world language, there are no changes at this time.
Are there any questions about course descriptions or changes for Mr. Thomas?
I actually have a question, Rachel and Mr. Thomas. This is Patty online. All of these courses that you're describing, these are not required courses. Is that correct? Because you mentioned the intro to music, that one is not required. And if that's going away, what does the student have? What is the student able to choose?
Place so
Yep.
that
Yep.
staff have a full schedule as well?
Yep, so I can cycle through that, but they're all listed in the program of studies, the different music courses offered.
Mrs. Robinson?
And just, when will the students choose their courses?
Over the next couple of weeks, they start, and it's open for a good month for them to be able to choose. We kick it off with what I mentioned as Course Excitement Week. Guidance counselors go into the classes and help students go through the process of this is how you get in, this is how you choose your courses, but then it's open for a month so they can work through it and ask any questions.
Mark, how does it work if it's open for a month, right? Do I have to register first in order to get the class if there's limited numbers, or is it a lottery once the month is over?
So we try to meet any requests, and typically we come pretty close to that. What happens is we don't have to get into that type of scenario until we run the schedules, because sometimes somebody may not be able to take their top request because they might have a competing course that conflicts with it, that type of thing. So sometimes that usually shakes out before we have to get into whether a student has to move down their list or not.
And when they register, do they register for a first choice and
Yeah, they
second
do.
choice?
Yep.
Okay.
Will we be continuing the opportunity to use like EduSure or something if a schedule doesn't work out and a student wants to continue with say for instance, sign language or a world language of some sort that just doesn't fit in their schedule, do they have the opportunity to take, the pass-fail type of class?
Yeah, and it's not a pass-fail, it's a credit-bearing course. And it's not completely wide open to anything under the sun, but we keep it within our scope of what we would offer, within that ballpark, and work with students as there might be holes in their schedule.
Because I know a lot of colleges are looking for 3 or 4 years of a world language or something like that, but it doesn't always fit with the way that we have our Panther and Pride, and those really big schedules and lots of
Only-
interesting classes to take.
Only 8 blocks in the day, unfortunately. so-
Yeah, or in the week.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Fiore?
So I don't, if there's any other questions for Mr. Thomas, I don't want to step on it, but I actually had a more general question about the program of studies, sort of like, I was reading over the proposed changes and stuff after Dr. Flaherty had sent out the agenda and thinking this would be an awesome resource or something similar to this for the middle school. I was actually wondering if the school committee had ever considered sort of producing or approving the production of a program of studies for the middle school.
The middle school has in the past, if they've got a course that's changing or they want to implement a new course, will bring it to this committee. But because so much of the middle school schedule is prescriptive, like there isn't a lot of choice in it, that doesn't bode well for a program of studies because there's not a lot of choice. But they do come forward if there is a new course that's being offered, or if we're making some major changes to a course, or if there's new curriculum that's being implemented, like the new ELA program. That was a big presentation to this body. So if we ever got to the point where we could do electives, that would be a that would come forward as a program of studies. But right now, where there's not a lot of choice, it doesn't make sense to do a whole program of studies.
I was considering it kind of from the perspective of looking at like what, just in my capacity in this committee, I've been talking to a lot of colleagues and stuff and asking them, what kind of things would you like to be heard on, that kind of thing. And I think a lot of the sort of standard concerns or frustrations and stuff often stem from schedule things or staffing issues and stuff like that, where people would love to have sort of a basic idea of like what our standard expectations for the student experience coming through the middle school would be. So it was one of those things that I was kind of just wondering, like, if we put down on paper sort of what our basic expectations are of what the educational process through the middle school looked like, it might be really helpful to us figuring out sort of prioritizing what we want to make sure that we're making time and resources for in the middle school.
We always bring school presentations forward, and if you work together as a staff and work through Lisa or with Lisa, explaining what we do and the subjects that we offer is always a great thing.
Cool.
So,
Yeah, something to think about.
okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Rachel, I think we need a vote for the changes, because that has to go, program of studies goes to the full school committee, right?
I believe you're right. Mr. Thomas outlined the sort of the CISDIF, or the things that are on that rotating cycle for the elective courses, and that change for the environmental science to become a permanent space holder in the course of studies because it is part of a pathway and needs to be available. I will make a motion to approve the updates to the course of studies as presented by Mr. Thomas and in our packet. If I could get a second.
The motion's been made. We need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fiore.
The motion's been made and seconded. Ms. Abel, can you call a roll, please?
Certainly will. I just want to make sure, are there any comments or questions before I call the roll? Not seeing any hands. I'm going to do it in the same order as the minutes. So, Mr. Fiore?
I vote yes.
Okay, thank you. Achul?
Yes.
And Sadie is studying for her midterm, so absent, hopefully. And Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Ms. Abel, yes. Ms. Banks?
Yes.
Ms. Kraft?
Yes.
And Mr. Redmond?
Yes.
Great. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, right. 8. That makes sense. 8 with members absent. Okay. Thanks.
We wanted to bring forward an overview of our MCAS results. This was scheduled to be in a meeting that we had missed earlier in the year. And we thought it was still important to review them, although for us with the boots on the ground, this seems like a very long time ago. We've already analyzed and synthesized all this information, and right now we're in the middle of data meetings for mid-year. And we always keep this in part of the discussions. But, so you'll see tonight that this is taking from a higher level, it's more of the district level, and we'll show you grade level results as well. And then when you hear from the principals very shortly, it's unbelievable how quickly the spring is coming. But when they come to do their school improvement plans, you'll hear them refer to some of their individual results. So I would start by saying that we had a lot to celebrate. We also have a lot of focus areas that we know that we've been working on. I would say that we've seen recovery move very well from COVID at elementary and at the high school, and very much like the rest of the state, middle schools are still struggling with that recovery. And so it's impacting some of the results. But when you think about the fact that our middle school students were elementary students during COVID, they missed or had their foundational learning very much interrupted. And so not only was the academics stinted, but they also had impact to their social skill development. And so the combination of both of those are leaving middle schools still in the middle of the recovery mode. So just the first few slides will give you kind of a perspective of where things sit across the state level. All schools were back to receiving accountability classifications, and that either tells you that you're a school that does not need assistance or intervention, or you do. There's a total of 1,827 schools in the 23-24 school year. 217 of them received a classification of insufficient data. So for an example, for us, McEwen is on the list, but they're not reported out because they're a preschool and they don't receive testing. And we have a lot of districts that have K2 schools, and they also aren't included. So that would be what that 217 number represents. The remaining 610 schools were classified as 1,325, or 82%, classified as not requiring assistance or intervention, and Beverly Public Schools falls within that category. There were 285 schools, or 18%, that were classified as schools requiring assistance or intervention for one or more reasons. Just as a reminder, as you see some of the results, and if you look online, because all of this information is now available at the DESE website as well under accountability reports, they use a 4-point scale, but really a 5-point, because a 0 is included, and that means that you don't earn any points at all, and you have made no gains towards your learning targets. In fact, you've probably declined. If you receive 1 point, that means that you have no change, so you didn't drop, but you didn't improve at all either. You received 2 points if you improved, but you were below the target that DESE has set for you. You received 3 points, or 75% of the points, for meeting your target, and you get 4 points for exceeding your target. Just want to, as we do every year, I try to use the picture of an onion to remind ourselves that when we talk about MCAS, it's one data point amongst many, and that it is only one snapshot on one day. And so while it's important, and it really does give us a way to compare ourselves within the district by grade level and then also across the state, it is only one snapshot and should be taken in a bigger picture when you're looking at everything that a school does. So this just is to reflect to you when we talk about the onion. These are all the different layers and the different types of assessments that we have to take into account when we are talking about looking at a successful outcome for students or for a school or for the district. And I'm not going to read the entire list, but just to give you an example of what is in each category. MCAS is one assessment, but as we're doing our data meetings now in elementary, we use DIBELS. We use Early Bird, which screens for reading and dyslexia. We use all of our projects and daily work. Teachers are using formative and summative assessments constantly, every day, teacher observations, and report cards. Students, some things that can impact that, we have the flu right now. We have COVID, we had COVID impact that especially our middle school students are recovering from. Attendance, you'll see that in several areas that students that are not making the gains that we had hoped often are also on our chronically absent list, and there is a real impact. If you come to school and you're here every day and you participate and you do your work, you are going to do very well on all of our assessments, and/or we will identify that you need support, and you'll get those supports in order to be able to achieve. At the district level, we look at curriculum alignment, we look at instructional resources. As you know, over the last 3 to 4 years, we were able to use a lot of our ESSER money to update many of our curriculum resources, and especially at the high school where we have some really big things to celebrate, you can see the impact that updating all of the curriculum there has come to us with. So at the state level, and you'll see that in some instances, we mirrored the state. In other instances, we were opposite from the state. But the state results showed that in ELA, that achievement levels were lower in all grades. Math results showed improvement in grade 3, but remained relatively flat amongst all the other grades. And science showed results and improvement in grade 5 and 10 with lower achievement in grade 8. And you'll see that we flipped that. We had higher achievement in grade 8 and lower achievement in grade 5. So I'm going to show you, and again, you'll get this information tomorrow. We didn't want to send it out and ruin all of the surprise before tonight. I have this depicted in both a visual format and then a table format following. So this will show you that we do mirror very much in our grades 3 through 8 the state. It looks very similar. So we are on a trajectory, and we are also above the state average when you look at our grades 3 through 8 collectively. We did have a slight dip from 46 to 43%, but we're still strongly above the state average when you combine meeting and exceeding for the district. In grade 10, this is one of our areas that we were all very happy with. We had a very good gain from 56 to 60% of our students, and you can see the big increase in our green area there. Those are students that are meeting expectations, and we're solidly above the state average. And we really want to applaud the work that the high school administration and teachers did over several years to revamp our ELA curriculum and to broaden the diversity of the books that we're reading, and the student engagement is visibly noticeable with students and their engagement in conversations around books, and that has led to a very nice increase there. This is a table format, and some people prefer to see it this way. For me, it's like seeing all those numbers together gets confusing, but let me explain to you what it means. The gray are the state numbers, the green are the district numbers, and then if you go over to the column that says state change, that is how the state performed between 2023 and 2024. Red means that it was a decline, and as you can see, they did decline across all grade levels. For the district, the change is red means that it was a decline, and a pink area shows a increase. And if you go down to the high school grade 10, this was a double celebration, because with this increase, the 4 points that they increased this year, it also brings them back to exceeding the 219 level. So they are now making new gains. They're not just doing recovery. They have completed their recovery. And then the last column shows you what is the difference between the district score and the state score. So when you look down, grade 3, grade 4, had slight dips in less than the state in grade 4, but we are still very strongly above the state average. Grade 5, you can start to see that impact with middle school, and they had a decline, but that was also the biggest decline statewide was in grade 5. The other thing to remember is that grade 5 was in year 1 of implementation of a new ELA program. And we've always tried to remind you that an implementation of a new program takes 3 years. And so we hopefully will see that as the lowest dip, and we will start to close those gaps, but it still may be a few years before you see positive growth as they're learning the program.
Can I also ask, those kiddos were like in first or second grade?
These were the
when
kiddos that really had their
school shut
foundational
down.
literacy skills impacted when it comes to foundational reading, yes. And this is a lot of information, so stop me as we go through if you have questions, because it might be hard to remember what you want to go back and ask as we go through, okay? We want to celebrate grade 6. They had statewide or district-wide the largest gain. They had a really strong gain in their literacy last year with, and being not gained for the year, but they are very strongly above the state average. So that is very good work to be proud of. Our 7th grade is even, and our 8th grade had a decline. But then when you look at the strength of the elementary level and the 6th grade, that leads to the overall being above the state average when you look at grades 3 through 8 as a spectrum. Okay, looking at math, we had a lot of good things to celebrate in math. If you can see, the green here again is solidly above the state average, and our red, which is the students that are not meeting expectations, are below state average. And so this is where the state remained flat, and we had a 4% gain in scores between 2023 and 2024 for our compilation of grades 3 through 8. Grade 10 had a little bit of a dip that mirrored the state dip. Both had a 2% decrease, but you can see that we also run very closely to the state average when you combine meeting and exceeding for the district and state, and our red is smaller than the state average. Again, when you look at the chart, the first grade column shows you the percentage for 2023 for the state. The green column is our district scores, 2024, the last year's scores for the state, and then the district. And when you see we had a pink, we had some good gains with the 6th grade. They had, and they're 5 points above the state average. And our high school had a small dip, but it mirrored what the state dip was. They were even. When you look at that last column, it shows you where we are in comparison to the state scores. And you can see that we have some really strong math scores above the state average. So grades 3, grade 4 was 12 points above the state. 5th grade was slightly below state average, but the 6th grade, that was the strongest above state average across all scores on any test. So 6th grade had a good year last year in both math and ELA. 7th grade is slightly above the state average. And 8th grade gets to be a little difficult to compare 8th grade scores because so many of our students go into algebra, and then that sometimes has an impact on the learning standards for the 8th grade test. But overall, we are 8 points above the state average when you look across our elementary and middle school grades, and our high school are even with the state average. Any questions about math? Okay, looking at science. Grade 5 science, this is where I told you we had the flip. The state had an increase. Also keep in mind that it was a new science test that was implemented this past year, so it's hard to compare the scores to previous years for science. They will show you that, but it was a different test, so it's hard to make a comparison. They had an increase at the state, we had a decrease, and you'll see that the opposite is true when we look at 8th grade science. We had a strong increase in our students that were meeting or exceeding, whereas the state had a slight decrease. And we are above the state average for 8th grade. In 10th grade, we had an increase from 57 to 59% of our students meeting or exceeding expectations. We also had a good decrease in students that were not meeting expectations. And science has always been, our 10th grade science scores have always been very strong results for us. And you can see that they are strongly above the state average. And so when you look at 5th grade, when you see just a 0.1 or a 0.2, that's pretty much, that can fluctuate from year to year. So I would say we're right on target with 5th grade to be on state average. We're slightly above and for 8th grade, and we are solidly, very strongly above for our 10th grade. Any questions on science? Okay, so last year, if you remember, they went back to assigning our accountability information, which means it's the rating that they give to each school district, and they look at it in two different ways. One is your accountability rating, which either says you do not require assistance or intervention, or you do. And then also the progress towards those targets. If you remember when we were looking at the point scale, the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's how they use to gauge your targets that you're moving towards meeting the targets that they set for you and telling you where you should end up on your test each year. And substantial progress is when you're at the top end of that scale. Moderate is when you're in the middle, the 50th percentile. And then you have lower, which is the 25th to the 49th, and then below 25th, that is when you receive no points at all. So you'll see that all of our schools made either moderate or substantial progress. This is an increase of schools making substantial progress this year, and we're really proud of all of them. We want to point out two schools in particular. First, and we only do this because everybody sometimes can fluctuate 1 or 2, maybe 3 places, but to go either higher than that 3% or 3 percentile points or lower is a real big impact, and it's not easy to do when you're trying to move up, because if you have children that you take to the doctors, right, they get into their percentile for height and weight, it is like millifractions of scores that can make a difference as to whether you're in the 70th percentile or the 80th percentile. So it becomes very challenging and not easy to achieve. And Ayers Rothschild had a 13-point growth this year, and that is very, very difficult to achieve. So we wanted to point them out and share in their hard work that they've been doing. And as I said, we only had 2 schools that are still making moderate progress, and last year we had 4 schools. So we had other schools that gained in the substantial progress towards targets. And then we wanted to really take a moment to signal out, as I had mentioned earlier, the work that is being done at the high school. Because as hard as it is to move in grades 3 through 8, the movement in high schools is even more challenging to achieve. And I happened to be at a faculty meeting when Mr. Thomas was presenting these 2 slides to his staff. And you can see that they went back to when they started collecting data, and that movement is in the mid-30s. Sometimes it's a little lower, sometimes it was a little higher. 2 kind of aberrations. One, they broke through to 41. That's the highest that they've ever been. And 1 year, they slipped down to the 29th percentile. But for the most part, everything is in that mid-30 range. And this year, the high school went to the 48th percentile, which is to move in 2 years from the 29th to the 48th is unheard of. And so we want to make sure that you share our congratulations, Mr. Thomas, with your staff. We know that you're going to continue to do the work. And this may be the last chance we have to celebrate, because we don't know how the changes in MCAS are going to impact the percentile rankings, especially for high schools. They're still going to have to take the test, but the seriousness of which that is taken may have an impact on what the outcome and percentile rankings are. So we just wanted to acknowledge the hard work that they've done as an entire staff, and in particular, the work with the growth with the ELA curriculum really led to that impact in that growth. So one of the other areas that you can look at are the scores. And remember, we're looking for 500s are where we want to be, 500. And so we are moving in the right direction. With the exception of just one area, all of our achievement scores increased, which is why you saw that substantial progress and moderate progress. And so I don't want to read all of you can see the chart, but you can see that in every area, we had gains in our high school. Our average scores raised well into the, the 500s. They've crossed over that. And so we're very proud that the achievement scores are continuing to grow. And while we know we still have work to do, we don't want to, say that we've achieved where we want to be. We still have work to do, and we know that. But we also want to take a moment to just celebrate the hard work to keep everybody moving in the right direction, especially seeing that we are still in recovery mode. We looked at our 3 largest subgroups to look at where they were doing, because when you look at those scores, when you look at the spread of those, include our subgroups, and some of our most high-risk need subgroups are the ones that are at that lower end, especially our students with disabilities. They, for the most part, tend to be the lowest number in those the scales ranges. And so we need to always keep looking at closing those achievement gaps. For a lot of our more high-risk needs subgroups, those are the students that are still really in recovery mode, and you'll see that when we look at attendance, that is an impact for some of those students. So the 3 main groups that we looked at were low-income, students with disability, and our Hispanic Latino subgroups. And across the board, they made moderate progress towards target. So we need to do some focus work to make sure that we can get all 3 of those groups into the substantial range moving forward. The other area that we look at is growth, student growth percentiles. And you can see here that they range from very low growth, which is below 20, all the way up to the 80 to 99, which is very high growth. We are looking for, looking at that typical growth goes between 40 and 59, and they talk about it as typical growth low, which would be 40 to 49, and typical growth high, which is 50 to 59. We really want to look across the board at making sure that our growth is at the 50 or higher. So you'll see that in many instances it is, and in other areas, we still have work to do to close that growth. So looking at ELA in grades 4 through 8, it was a range of 37.2 to 45.5. And remember that 4th grade was the only one included in this that were in year 2, but all of the grades are still in implementing a new ELA program. And in fact, 4th grade was in year 2, 5th grade was in year 1, and grades 6 through 8 weren't even in their new ELA program yet. They were piloting, which really has an impact because they were looking at 2 different programs during that year. Our 10th grade, and you can see the impact for their improvement also in their growth percentage scores, where they range from right below that 50% mark, 47.7, up into the mid-50s. For math, we ranged from 41.6 to 59.5, so didn't fall out of the typical growth range, and we are almost in the next high growth for math in our elementary and middle schools. And then grade 10, same thing, very, very close to that 50%, and so we're moving into the higher typical growth, and they're getting close to being able to move into the next level as well. This looks at our 4-year graduation rate. That is one thing that the high school has when they set their accountability targets. And you can see, without having to look through all of the different numbers, you can do that when you get the slides. But if you look at the far over column, it will let you know for all of our students that we exceeded the target. We met our target for graduation for our high needs and low income students. For students with disability, we improved, but we were below the target. Our Hispanic Latino were improved, but below the target. And for our white population, subpopulation, we met the target. So that is very positive news for the high school. This is our dropout rate, which the high school also, they look at, but it's always lagging a year behind. So this is data that looks at 22 to 23, because by the time they finish the test, they don't have time to compilate that data. So it's always a year in arrears. So for all students, that means when you take everybody together, we met the target. It declined for our high needs students. Our low-income students, there was no change, so it didn't drop, but it didn't increase. We exceeded for our students with disabilities, which means we stopped students from dropping out from that category. And it declined for our Hispanic Latino community. And for white, we met the target. When we look at our chronic absenteeism, this is what I was talking about before. When you look at some of the students that have lower growth scores, lower achievement scores, are at a higher risk for dropout, they also tend to be students that have higher chronic absenteeism. And so one thing I would point out to you, during COVID, our Hispanic Latino, our absentee rate for them became very high, as it did for our students with disabilities, low income, and high needs. And those are 4 areas that we are working to reduce, but they are still way too high. So it was at its high last year, and we had already reduced it. Remember, we made some good gains in 2023. We're talking about 40% of our students in the Hispanic Latino were considered chronically absent, 37.1 of students with disability, 42.3 for low income, and 37.7 for our high need students, compared to 19.3 of our white students. So our high needs groups really were impacted. And last year, we had increased, we made improvements, but for an existence, Hispanic Latino exceeded our target, so we did a good job at reducing that, but it's still at over 30% of that subgroup is considered to be chronically absent. So if there is anything, as you know, Megan Sudak has been here. It's an initiative that we're working very hard on and will continue to work hard on. But that would be the message, that the biggest thing you can do to help support students is to get them to school. And you'll see that it's similar for our non-high school students. And we did exceed the target for all students and met the target for many of our high needs groups here. So we are starting to turn the tide, but some of those numbers are still too high. Did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that the data next year will be gravely impacted by this.
Yeah.
So if you look at the points column, those are all points we get that get factored into all of the accountability percentiles and all of the things that we do. But the attendance, we sort of were off with a bang and doing really well. I think that the disruptions in the fall and the makeup days and low attendance rates, which we've been showing you what the attendance rates are now, I would hypothesize, I don't have data on it because we didn't collect it yet, but that the students that are in these more marginalized categories that are probably also students that were missing at school on some of these makeup days. So that's just something to keep in mind, and we're really trying to encourage the community to help us and parents to help us understand that these makeup days are important days. Desi's not going to dismiss them. They're not makeup days in their mind, and so they're going to count as instructional days for our students. So just really putting out that plug, come to school. It's really important. Every day is important, and some of our staff has been working.
That overall picture will look like it may be a bleak change or a drop in a lot of things, when that's not really the case. It's just we need to rebound for the way they categorize their data. So our recovery initiatives and moving forward with student achievement, again, you'll see that this is a long list, and it's probably not even an exhaustive list. I'm going to just kind of point out some of the bold ones, and you can read through all of the different ways. But you can see that as we look to close achievement gaps and we're looking at raising student achievement, it is on a multi-front approach. I think one of the things that we are working very hard and have over the last several years is to really build a belief system, and in some instances change a belief system that all means all, and that all students can do challenging work when they are supported the right way in the classroom. That we're trying to increase rigor and expectations for all students, and really focusing in on Tier 1 instruction for all, and making sure that scaffolds and supports are in classrooms so that students that need that can still achieve grade level work. Because until we get all students working at grade level, you won't see the highest level of achievement that we hope that we can obtain. And I just wanted to highlight that a very positive change at the high school this year, from everything that I've heard, is the implementation of the flex block, where students can go to get assistance and teachers can pull kids in that they think need extra assistance. At the middle school, a couple of things that we are, I think, looking at the schedule, trying to find the best way to meet all of the needs. We're still doing work with TNTP that is helping with math instruction, but also coaching and providing ways to do valuable walkthroughs, to provide feedback on all instructional strategies. And again, focusing on that Tier 1 instruction. And absenteeism, really focusing on all 3 levels here around attendance. And we set a goal last year that 80% of our elementary schools made their ST Math goals. Our coaches are heading to the ST Math Champion tomorrow morning, we hope, if the weather doesn't stop it. And they were able to achieve that, and so we're trying to keep that as on pace with what we're doing. I know that some of the project-based learning that we did for the vacation math academies last year, some of the schools are implementing during our February school week, so that we are focusing on new learning and deepening our learning, but also trying to have fun as we're working through that. And the kids really enjoyed the project-based, so doing some mini project-based, and then really focusing on building thinking classrooms. And we're looking at how a lot of PD that might be kind of presented for one subject is really just good instructional strategies that can be taken over into other subjects as well, which is the case for building thinking classrooms. It's a math book that we're looking at, but we've also heard that teachers are implementing a lot of the same strategies. So for an example, getting kids vertical is one of the things that they talk about, and getting them talking while they're standing up, because it works on a different part of the brain. And so really focusing on some brain research and how the brains best learn. And there's 5 schools, so that's why the elementaries have 2 slides. They were, and I can take any questions that you might have.
Thank you for just putting all that together. I know that's a lot of work.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say, like, about MCAS, I mean, kids are going to who are going to try are going to try. Kids who, I think they'll always work to their potential. And I think the best thing we can do is just not keep driving home that it doesn't.
which is school choice. Ms. Abel, do you want to take these one at a time, or do you want me to just give you an overview of the three, and then we can move to the next slide that has voting
Yeah,
language?
let's do the overview, because they're similar.
So two of these really have no changes to it, and one we are recommending a small change. And so for JFAB, admission of transfer students, this was last reviewed in 2023. It has similar language to MASC, not identical, but the gist of both policies are identical. Our policy matches our current practice. And so we would recommend that we maintain the current language and mark it as reviewed. When we get to JFB, open enrollment, this is a Beverly-only policy. MASC does not have this policy. It was last reviewed in 2023. Ms. Bergeron reviewed it because she oversees a lot of our open enrollment stuff, and she said that it matches our current practice. And so we would recommend that we maintain the current language and just mark the policy as reviewed. And then JFBB, which is school choice, we are making two small recommendations for change. It was last reviewed in 2023. It has similar language to MASC. For our newer members, MASC means Mass Association of School Committees, and they put together a big binder of policies and give you model policies that you can either adopt or adapt or not choose to follow. And so that's why we make a reference to MASC if there is a policy that we're looking at. Okay. If you look at this policy, we are recommending that we change number 3 and number 7. Number 3 is not part, it says the resident student be given priority placement in any classes or programs within the district. We do not currently use this or implement this, because once we take a school choice student in, they are equal to any of our resident students, so they all should have equal access. So we would recommend removing number 3 from the policy. And then in number 7, just trying to be consistent with upgrading language, we recommend adding caregiver after the word guardian. So I would answer any questions that you had on any of those. And if not, we would be looking to have a motion that we mark policy JFABC, admission of transfer students, as reviewed, and maintain our current policy language as is. Motion to mark policy JFB, open enrollment, as reviewed, and maintain our current policy language. And then we would look for a motion to approve the amended changes as presented to policy JFBB and send to the school committee for their first read.
So moved. All
Second.
3 in a package.
Motion's been made and seconded, and could you call a roll, Ms. Abel?
Sure, I'm just wondering if there's any comments or questions now that we had the explanation about the 2 changes to JFBB. Oh, okay. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. We could stay here. It's not debatable. I'll call the roll again real quickly. Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Abel, yes, Ms. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Kraft,
Yes.
and Mr. Redmond.
Yes.
Okay, 7:23. Thank you so much for your participation. It was good to see everyone tonight. Have a good one.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We have a packed agenda and a packed room tonight. I want to thank everyone for joining us here. It is the Beverly School Committee's regular school committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. We are using a remote meeting platform this evening, although at this moment, it looks like it's just BevCam and myself on there, but we will be using it for some slide presentations on the Apple TV. I just wanted to let everyone know that we do provide real-time access thanks to BevCam. Thank you, BevCam. They are broadcasting us tonight, Channel 6 and HD 1073. They also have a live stream on their website, and they supply a feed through their YouTube channel, which then becomes a recorded session of the meeting. I just want to remind folks, because it's coming to an end as far as I can tell, that during the COVID times, beginning on June 16th, 2021, with the Chapter 20 Acts of 2021, which were twice extended and now further extended to March 31st, 2025, here we are coming up. Local governments and boards were granted a provision to, among other things, hold meetings in a remote fashion and suspended the need for the quorum and chair to physically be present. It does ask our body to use technical methods to allow for safe public access. As a note, Beverly also has prior approval through the Attorney General's office for remote participants of members, although through that permission, the chair and quorum do physically need to be present in a place that's open to the public. So we'll be reverting to that unless our legislature picks it up. They did try something last June, but it hasn't moved, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens at the end of next month. But I wanted to remind people at home and here that this is a regular school committee meeting, which means we have an agenda item that provides an opportunity to address the body. If you do want to make public comments, you can send your thoughts or a request for the link to our remote meeting platform in advance. We ask that you reach us by 7 o'clock to make sure we can see your request and get the link out to you. And we also have a sign-up sheet at the podium, which a number of people I have noticed have made their way to the front to sign up. We do ask that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes, so I will be running a timer, and that you do state your name and address for the record. Again, this is an address to the body. We will not be entertaining a conversation or replying at the moment. They can be, your topics can be something that's on our agenda this evening or not an agenda item. It's your choice. I will say we are joined today by members of the, school committee. I'm just going to let Dr. check's computer in there. And we have a couple of absences this evening, and we send our best wishes to Ms. Coelho and Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza tonight. In the room, we have Mayor Cahill.
Here.
Karen Robinson.
Here.
Jeffrey Silva.
Here.
Lorinda Visnick.
Here.
And I'm Rachel Abel. We are also joined by our student representative, Delia Gauker.
Here.
And our executive secretary, Donna Bergeron.
Here.
Superintendent Sue Churchek.
Here.
Dr. Andre Morgan. Ms. Erin Brown. Ms. Emma Puglisi. Here. All of our principals. Let's see, we have Amy Blanchard, Kate Twombly, Julie Smith, Gabrielle Montevecchi, Lisa Oliver, and Mark Thomas. And best wishes to Ms. Hart. I think that's the attendance for now. We have a number of distinguished guests in the audience as well. Thank you so much for being here. First order of business on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Robinson, I can't remember if I've chosen you recently, if you wouldn't mind leading us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much for that. And next we have a student recognition. I think, Mr. Brennan, if you would be so kind, just turn the microphone green. You can raise it if you wish, or...
Oh, look at that.
And then you can like face them. Do a little swirl here. And the camera still catch you.
Excellent. I have the distinct honor and privilege of introducing our 2025 351 Ambassador, Malak Al-Alam. So each municipality in the state of Massachusetts chooses one exceptional eighth grader each year to represent their school community in service projects throughout the state. She's already done the initial Martin Luther King Day activity, and then she'll be doing some other volunteering opportunities throughout the school year. Hopefully this helps her with her leadership goals, and we're really proud of you, and thank you for representing Beverly.
And next, our student representative, Delia Gauker, will give her report to the school committee.
Thank you. At Beverly High School, winter sports are beginning to wrap up their seasons, with many teams holding their senior and/or NEC meets. This will be followed by banquets to celebrate the ends of the season. Spring sports will begin in mid-March, with registration opening soon. This week, students have been taking their midterm exams. Our schedule has 2 different exam blocks per day, and then after lunch, students have the option to leave or to stay for makeup tests or extra help. This week also ends the second quarter with report cards posted on February 21st. On Friday, there will be an extended advisory period for Career Day. Juniors will listen to presentations by professionals in fields they are interested in. Seniors will continue to prepare for their REACH internships. Sophomores will create a slideshow presentation about a career of interest, and freshmen will have team building on their freshman academy teams. Juniors are signing up to take the SAT at BHS in April. Students that qualified will be competing at the DECA States in Boston during the last week in February. They qualified through their participation in the district competition at Endicott. Beverly High School is excited to welcome school committee member Dr. Kanan Mackenzie DeFranza as a special guest speaker on February 25th to celebrate Black History Month. And to promote community throughout our school, students were able to send friendship Valentine's Day notes called Palentines to a classmate or a teacher, and the climate committee will distribute these at the end of the week. Thank you.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Thank you so much for your report. As always, we welcome you at the table, especially this evening if you have time, but we understand you have midterms again tomorrow, so make your choice as you wish. For the school committee, next item, approval of our meeting records. This is from our January 8th meeting. They were presented in the packet, and I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick and Mayor Cahill. We are all in person, so we can do a by hand vote, and just wondering if there's any corrections or edits that anyone wanted to note. All those in favor? 5-0. Thanks. Next, we will do the forum for resident voice for input on agenda-related or non-agenda-related items. And I believe everyone is in person. Let me know if you clarify that one person online. As I mentioned before, there's a 3-minute limit, and please state your name and address at the beginning of your remarks for the record. And I will call Andrea Sherman first. If you wouldn't mind just pressing the button so it turns green, that way BevCam can hear us at home.
Good evening, school committee members. I'm Andrea Sherman, 78 Water Street and 502 Cabot Street. I am a health and wellness educator at Beverly Middle School, and I am also the co-president of the Beverly Teachers Association. I would like to take a few moments to address this body and speak in favor of Beverly Public Schools developing safe schools for all students. A resolution is a great start, and we must continue the conversation. This week, I received a message from a parent concerned about how we can keep their student safe in the aftermath of the national political change. Beverly has a diverse student population, and every student should come to school knowing there's a plan to keep everyone safe. It's important to clarify that safety comes in many forms, specifically physical, emotional, and intellectual. Beverly educators are committed to working with all of the stakeholders to create the schools we all deserve. With that said, as the leader of the Educators Union, I must take a moment to say that the school committee and school management must do more than pass a resolution. We must fulfill our obligations in this community to student safety through action. In our strike, a major victory was the creation of a broad stakeholder task force to discuss and review health and safety issues. This was not limited to potholes in the parking lot. We must use this space to have challenging conversations about the problems facing our students. It's also important to include that the national political landscape is impacting our students. We must ensure that we're able to have the hard conversations about the resources we need to support dysregulated students. The BTA wants to be active and stand by our students and educators as we navigate these problems. We have assembled our team and we are ready to work. So I publicly ask you to announce the management representatives as well as the school site council parent representatives to commence this vital work that we must do together. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak and for your time.
Thank you. Next, we will have Lydia Ames. I think you're reading on behalf of Vanessa Ford. Name and address for the record. Thank you.
Yes, so I'm Lydia Ames, and I'm actually speaking on behalf of Vanessa Ford. She was intending to be here tonight and wrote a message, but she threw her back out right before the meeting, so I got the last minute. Can you just read it for me? So, my name is Vanessa Ford, and tonight I am asking for courage, clarity, and commitment. I am here for my transgender child and for every trans and non-binary student in our schools. Kids who walk into classrooms each day hoping to be seen, hoping to be safe. But hope is no longer enough, which brings me here to speak tonight. Our transgender youth are under attack. Over $215 million has been spent in recent years to spread anti-trans rhetoric, turning our kids into political targets. And then within weeks of inauguration, the floor fell out. Executive order after executive order, action after action, stripping legal recognition of trans and non-binary identities, banning transgender military service, blocking gender-affirming healthcare for minors, banning transgender girls at all levels from competing, removing Department of Education programs supporting transgender students, erasing LGBTQ+ resources from government websites, banning the use of pronouns in government signatures, targeting inclusive school curricula and practice. With each executive order comes confusion and fear. And while these orders may not override Massachusetts law, confusion itself is a weapon. It creates uncertainty for families, for educators, and most of all, for the students directly impacted. Imagine being 13 years old, carrying the weight of the entire nation's fear and misunderstanding on your shoulders, and walking into middle school each day. And yet our kids, my amazing kid, keep going. They show up, they learn, they make friends, they dream of their futures, futures that we have the power to protect. That is why I want to take a moment to thank those who brought forth this resolution. Your commitment to ensuring that every student feels supported and safe is meaningful and deeply appreciated. This resolution is a crucial step forward. At the same time, I ask you to consider an important amendment. I urge you to amend the title to directly reference the population this resolution is meant to protect. Clarity matters. There is growing misinformation that LGBTQ+ topics are being introduced into schools in sneaky ways or without parents' knowledge. The current title may feed that narrative and work against the very goals this resolution sets out to achieve. Let's not give that argument space. In closing, my trans child has mostly thrived in Beverly Public Schools, not by chance, but because people have made deliberate, conscious choices to protect, affirm, and uplift them. Safety and belonging don't just happen, they are created. Creating a community where transgender and non-binary students thrive must be an intentional choice we make again and again. Tonight, I ask you to make that choice and use your voice to pass the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, looks like Abbott Contos. Just need to push the button once to turn that mic green, and that way BevCam can hear us.
My name is Abbott Contos. I'm a 6th grader at Beverly Middle School and live at 7 Juniper Valley Court. I'm a 3-time Beverly Little League All-Star, one of the top cross-country runners for the middle school boys team, a standout basketball player, tennis player, artist, and saxophone player. I also happen to be trans. The best word to describe how the past few months and weeks have been is terror. I'm terrified because my government is trying to erase me. I'm terrified because my government has said that trans people do not exist. They called my parents child abusers and that I've been chemically mutilated. Instead of focusing on improving my jump shot, practicing for an upcoming band performance, or improving my essay writing, I am terrified that my doctor's appointments will be canceled. I'm terrified that next week I may not be able to return home after my family's trip to Spain, and that I will have my passport taken away from me. Instead of hanging out with my friends and going to school, I am traveling to Washington, D.C. to speak with senators and protesting with my trans community on the steps of the Supreme Court so that I can have basic human rights. I am speaking to you today. I'm scared. I'm scared that standing up and asking for public support from my community leaders will out me, that I will lose friends, that I will be bullied, and that I will be attacked. But I have chosen to be brave. If I don't speak up, who will? I will not let them erase me. I'm here tonight asking for your support. Please stand up and say something. Please pass a resolution making it clear that all trans and non-binary students and staff are welcome and protected within Beverly schools. Your voice is louder than mine. I know how scared you may be, but if I can be brave, so can you. In the words of my idol and the NFL's MVP, Josh Allen, be good, do good, God bless, and go Bills. Thank you.
And it looks like Emily Contos.
Is there a tissue? Sorry. Do I have to touch it again? Okay. My son's a tough act to follow. I'll try to get through this. My name is Emily Contos. I live at 7 Juniper Valley Court. I'm a mother to 3 amazing kids in the Beverly public school system. You just heard from my son, and I am so proud of his bravery. I don't want to be here tonight. I know that city and local officials such as yourself have a lot of other pressing matters to attend to that impact the lives of our beloved Beverly students, families, and staff. I know that you are battle-worn from the recent strike, and you take seriously how that has impacted our community, our schools, and our budget. I'm battle-worn too. In the past 14 days, there have been 5, now make it 6, executive orders attempting to erase my son from existence. To direct such pointed discrimination to the absolute most marginalized and small community, a community that is just trying to live their own authentic lives, is just purely hateful. I am tired of having to demand at the federal, state, and local level basic respect and human rights for my son. I am tired of my son and his trans community being scapegoated by the highest office of our nation. I would much rather be at home right now watching Jeopardy with my family. Instead, we are here, taking up time and space to urge our local leaders to commit to protecting some of Beverly's most marginalized students and staff. I understand your apprehension. I know all too well how loud the uninformed voices are. I'm heartbroken to know that they will never go away, never search for understanding, and most likely only get louder over the coming years. I understand that leaders in charge of the stewardship of our city must take a measured approach and act in the best interest of the entire community. But I also know that we can be louder together to help ensure that the most vulnerable among us feel welcome,
safe, protected when they enter our school doors. I urge you to reaffirm our district's commitment to adhering to state laws and voice your support for our students and staff that are enduring unimaginable suffering right now. Since Abbott ended with a quote, I will not quote the bills, but I very much applaud his choice. I will quote Desmond Tutu in, "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality." My son and his community of mice are asking for you to speak up and for what's right, even when the elephant refuses to lift its foot. Thank you.
Jana Dwyer.
Okay, great. Hi, Jana Dwyer, 502 Cabot Street, Beverly. Hi, I'm Jana Dwyer. I am a counselor at Beverly Middle School, and I'm one of the advisors of the GSA Club here. A study published by the Trevor Project in November of 2024 had survey results about how people in the lives of trans and non-binary youth can best support them. 92% of the trans and non-binary youth surveyed said that people could support them by trusting that they know who they are. 85% said that standing up for them would be supportive. 84% said that not supporting anti-LGBTQ plus politicians would feel supportive. And 82% said that respecting their pronouns would be supportive. And 77% said that by showing support for how they express their gender, no matter what, would feel supportive. A couple of years ago, I had seen a study published by the CDC that had statistics about the overwhelming amount of trans and non-binary students who have self-harmed, considered suicide, or attempted suicide, and the rates were very, very significantly higher than the cis students. When I looked this evening while I was writing these comments, on the CDC's website for the study, it said, "This page has been archived for historical purposes." We cannot assume that because we're in Massachusetts that nothing will happen here. We have to loudly, clearly, and unrelentingly reassure trans kids and their families that Beverly stands with them. We need to do the same for undocumented students and families. ICE detained a student in Lynn last week. 114 people were sent from Plymouth, Massachusetts to a detention center in New Mexico. Immigrants are what make this country great, and we need to reassure families that they are welcome here. Thank you.
Mr. Milady.
John Milady, 11 Iverson Road. Thank you, members of the school committee, for giving us this opportunity tonight to present our concerns for the other members of our community. I know the road ahead for you for the rest of your term is going to be incredibly busy as you both navigate the budget process as well as beginning to hire our new superintendent, and I wish you all the best of luck. This year, I attended the National Social Studies Conference in Boston and sat in on a workshop on trauma-informed teaching. The professor that day shared this short poem with us that I would like to share with you tonight. The poem is called "'Cause I Ain't Got a Pencil" by Joshua Dickerson. I woke myself up because we ain't got an alarm clock, dug in the dirty clothes basket because ain't nobody washed my uniform, brushed my hair and teeth in the dark because the lights ain't on, even got my baby sister ready because my mama wasn't home. Got us both to school on time to eat us a good breakfast. Then when I got to class, the teacher fussed because they ain't got no pencil. The poem gave me pause about some of the assumptions that I've made over the years about my own students. and inevitably the types of assumptions that some of our own students face every day. The truth is, there are children in our classrooms that have more going on at home than the schools will ever know or understand. For some, the very action of getting to school is a feat of courage and strength. This is where, as members of the school committee, you have the power and the opportunity to offer support for those who need it right now. Currently, there are students in our district who are feeling pressure and stress that extends beyond the walls of the school. As you know, outside forces have a direct impact on how our students learn, grow, and achieve. Schools are meant to be a place where all students can turn to as a place where they feel welcomed, loved, and appreciated. One such group of students that feels particularly targeted are members of the LGBT community, especially our transgender students. And I'll be the first to admit that I am not an expert on gender identity and sexuality. I'm not a member of the medical community or the scientific community, and recently I learned I actually can't spell the word chromosome. I can speak, and I can only speak on this topic as an educator, a parent, and as a friend. Our words and actions can have a profound impact on others, and we will go through life never fully understanding how we've impacted someone else. But occasionally, if we're really lucky, we'll get the chance to hear from one of them. And I'd like to share with you a portion of an email I received from a former student of mine. For their privacy, I'm not going to share their name. They've long since graduated and are living their best lives right now. Personally, you've been an important teacher to me. In spending this year figuring out my gender identity, it's been a real struggle. This town is not an incredibly supportive place and often feels incredibly isolating to be trans. I can go into it further, but this message isn't about my experiences, how it's been difficult. It's a thank you. When I started going by blank, I went to a couple of teachers after a while of writing on my papers, and I told them, with you I didn't have to. It seems so small, but I'm actually crying as I type this, and I do not cry frequently. Being trans often feels like a big deal, especially in a small town, but your acceptance and how casual it was massively validating. And right now there are people in our city, some of you who you're never going to meet, that are struggling. And what a privilege it is that you have to offer some kindness at a time where they feel like there isn't any. I've been very lucky to know Abbott since he was in preschool with my son Jack. Jack has enjoyed many of his first childhood milestones with him, from birthday parties, Beverly Little League, Kiwanis basketball. Jack's first movie was with Abbott, as well as the first time he's ever slept over at somebody else's house. And I can't look at my own children or my students and know that I remain silent during a time where his civil rights and his decency are being denied, as well as many other people in our community. I can't look at his parents, Alex and Emily, without thinking of a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. quote. In the end, we'll remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. So to sit back and remain quiet during this time would be a betrayal to the people that I love and that I think highly of. Public service is a privilege, and at times it can be very exhausting. Like you, I've had nasty things said about me by the very people that I took an oath to serve. And like you, I know the sting and the pain of those comments, but I encourage you to hang in there and remember that to love takes courage. And tonight you're being asked to show some love to children and adults who need it right now. And love is not like pizza. Giving and expressing love for one group doesn't take away love from someone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It looks like Alyssa Raymond Reed.
Thank you. Thanks for having us tonight and having this discussion. My name is Alyssa Raymond Reed. I use she, her pronouns. I am at 163 Lothrop Street with my husband, 2 children, one of whom is non-binary, and a new puppy. I'm also a member of the Human Rights Committee, but I'm not wearing that hat tonight. I'm actually wearing the hat of the Massachusetts Commission on LGBTQ Youth. I'm a commissioner, and I have the approval of the commission to speak on their behalf this evening and to share that they are a resource for the school committee and that they work with DESE to oversee and implement the Safe Schools program and issue every year annual report and recommendations, which consistently have shown that in Massachusetts, despite our exemplary best practices and laws and policies in schools protecting LGBTQ youth, we still have outrageously awful statistics, as you've heard from some people, including depression, suicidality, self-harm, drug abuse, homelessness, foster care, familial rejection, and later in adolescence, job discrimination, and sort of other impacts. I did not prepare as wonderfully as some of the people before me. I'm also going to try to hold my emotion, which I think is really important for everyone to be feeling right now. But I do want to share really personally that I spent some time on Tuesday night in a call with a group of parents of trans kids who I joined when my child first was showing that they were gender non-binary. And we are a group that is secret. Like, we don't share where we meet. We were a play group for our kids. And we met with somebody in the administration of the state to give us information about what's going on and how to protect ourselves and our children. And the questions that were coming out in the chat and the questions that we were sharing out loud verbally included things like, is Massachusetts ready? Are our schools ready? Is DESE ready? Are our medical providers ready? Are our camp counselors ready to defend us if we start getting investigated for criminal neglect, if we're affirming our children's gender identity? Are we prepared to stockpile hormone blockers? What happens if our identities are now disclosed in the DOJ look into NIH grants where some of us were involved in clinical trials? Should we be having what's called the Rainbow Railroad, like the Underground Railroad, where we are fleeing to other countries, or where we are secretly hiding trans families in our homes if they come from other states? What is Massachusetts prepared to do? I would ask you, what is the school's role in that? What is the city's role? What can we do? How strong can your resolution be? And then how strong is a resolution really if it's rhetorical and it's not followed through with policy change? I want to read a couple things into the record that you may have already gotten sent to you. My sister happens to be on school committee in Watertown, so I got to see and read what they put out just on February 10th. Is today the 11th? 12th? So 2 days ago. The School Committee of Watertown Public Schools recognizes that the series of actions, and then it lists the executive orders and statements and directives, made by the Trump administration since January 20th, 2025, threatens the safety, security, health, and humanity of people who identify as transgender, gender nonconforming, or who are questioning their gender identity. These actions are discriminatory and exclusionary. They risk the safety of this group of WPS, Watertown Public Schools students and staff, and embolden others to intimidate and harass. Every student and staff member of the WPS community is entitled to an environment that feels safe, respectful, and welcoming, in which they can learn and work free from bullying, harassment, intimidation, threats, and violence. The WPS School Committee is committed to providing such an environment, and it will stand up to actions made by individuals or institutions to threaten, intimidate, or harm transgender and gender nonconforming students and staff. From my alma mater, Lexington Public School, doing the right thing requires daily practice, from Julie Hackett, the Superintendent of Schools, on February 4th. We believe it is our obligation to serve and care for others in our community and stand up for just causes, even when it might be difficult to do so. When we act with integrity and moral courage, our small actions can lead to big changes. Scrolling down. To our students, staff, parents, and caregivers who are feeling frightened and scared right now, please know that we stand with you. Scrolling down. It is important for students, families, and staff to know that nothing has changed with respect to the laws in Massachusetts. And I'm going to just bullet out for you. That means that nothing has changed in our schools, and educators should continue in their inclusive practices, and children whose identities are affirmed feel safer in schools. Another school that is now is in draft form, and it's not public yet, is following up with this kind of a resolution, which I know is under consideration today, with specific policy that is very strong, explaining exactly what and who to go to and what educators can and cannot do to support trans students. So I urge, in addition to the specific call from Vanessa Ford, to be very clear in identifying that this is not just all students are safe, this is transgender and non-binary students are safe, referring back to laws being the same, but then following through with policy is the only way to show that we are taking a stand against these discriminatory, threatening, and harassing, bullying tactics from the highest office of our land. One more thing I'm going to say, and I know I'm over my time. I was on the very first Massachusetts Commission under Governor Weld for gay and lesbian youth, is what it was called. It was created by the executive branch. Mitt Romney came in and eradicated it, and then it was codified by the legislature, and now it's the Mass Commission on LGBTQ Youth. We are the only commission in the whole country. We need to be the leader on this issue. We should not be watering down these kinds of resolutions or policies. We are the ones that hold the bearer. We are the torchbearer for this work. So I really urge you to think about what that means in Beverly and what historically Beverly is going to look like as a result of the statements and policies that you make as a school committee. Thank you.
Ms. Bergeron, did we have anyone sign up online? No. And I saw a few people join us a little bit late. Were there any other people interested in signing up this evening? Okay. Dr. Trocek? Do you want to go to your superintendent's report, or you want to look at the agenda out of order? Or do you?
Do you want to do the out of order so that all the folks that are here, we might want to just move to that?
Okay.
Is that
With the
okay?
school committee's permission, the chair is going to move us temporarily to resolution to support our students under the chair updates, if that's all right.
Yep.
I want to thank Ms. Visnick for providing us the opportunity to have this discussion and this opportunity to adopt a resolution this evening. I appreciate the teamwork that went into drafting a resolution and making sure that it got to us for posting on the agenda. It was provided to each of the members in the morning. Mayor Cahill, I printed out another copy for you because I do realize. I can read it into the record as well. So that will give us an opportunity, and then I'll be looking for a motion of some sort from the body. As drafted, a resolution to support our students. Whereas the district welcomes and supports all students. Whereas an act relative to gender identity, Chapter 199 of the Acts of 2011, which became effective on July 1st, 2012, amended several Massachusetts statutes prohibiting discrimination on the basis of specified categories to include discrimination on the basis of gender identity, and there are footnotes with links as well. Whereas General Law, Chapter 76, Subsection 5, prohibits discrimination on the basis of gender identity against students who enroll in or attend the public schools. Citation 2. Whereas the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education offers guidance to school districts in order that transgender and gender nonconforming students feel safe, supported, and fully included, and to meet each school's obligation to provide equal education opportunities for all students in compliance with General Law, Chapter 76, Subsection 5. Third citation. Whereas on January 31st, 2025, the Massachusetts Education Secretary confirmed the state's commitment to protect students against discrimination on account of race, color, sex, gender identity, religion, national origin, and sexual orientation. Citation 4. Whereas it is the right of every child, regardless of gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation, to access a free, public K-12 education in Massachusetts. Whereas the district has a responsibility to ensure that all students who reside within its boundaries, regardless of gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation, can safely access a free public K-12 education. And whereas the district recognizes that there are employees and educators of the highest caliber who are gay, lesbian, and transgender, and that all employees are valued members of the school community, regardless of their gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation. And whereas the district recognizes that the families in our community come in many different forms, and that the district values all our families and students' caregivers, regardless of gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation. And whereas lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning, LGBTQ students experience higher rates of bullying, victimization, and harassment at school on the basis of their actual or perceived sexual orientation or gender identity. And whereas this bullying, victimization, and harassment has led to negative educational outcomes for LGBTQ students, including higher rates of dropping out, higher rates of absenteeism, and lower post-secondary school aspirations. And whereas LGBTQ students also report higher rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide. Whereas creating a welcoming and safe school environment for our LGBTQ students, staff, families, and caregivers makes our school community more welcoming and safer for all. And whereas educational personnel are often the primary sources of support, resources, and information to assist and support students and student learning, which includes their social and emotional health. And whereas the district supports education that celebrates our differences, integrity in how we treat others, and courage to do what's right by listening to, learning from, and respecting diverse viewpoints. And whereas on July 1st, 2012, the Beverly Public Schools added gender identity as a specific and protected class within its statement of non-discrimination in accordance with state law, and affirms equal access, right, and protections within the Beverly Public Schools to all persons regardless of gender identity. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the committee recommits to the fact that the district prohibits discrimination against all persons, whether student, family, caregiver of the student, or district employee, based on the actual or perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, or the actual or perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression of their associates. Be it further resolved that the committee recommits to the fact that the district prohibits bullying and harassment against all persons, whether student or district employee, on the basis of actual or perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, or the actual or perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression of their associates. Be it further resolved that the committee recommits the district and the school continue to ensure that curricula involve diverse perspectives. Be it further resolved that the committee declares the district to be a safe space for its students, meaning that the district is a place for all students to learn, to thrive, and to seek assistance, information, and support free from discrimination and bullying. So, thank you, Ms. Visnick, again, for bringing this to us. Look for a motion, and then we can open discussion.
So move. Second.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Mayor Cahill.
I've got a couple of questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
May I?
Oh, of course, of course.
I have some prepared statements that may in fact address something that I think the mayor's going to ask.
Okay. Would you like to yield to Ms. Visnick? I didn't see her. Okay,
Like
Ms.
on the
Visnick.
mind meld over here. Thank you, Mayor Mike. Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to start by reminding the folks here, as opposed to there, that there's precedence for our school committee to submit for consideration, discussion, and vote on resolutions. We've issued very similar resolutions a number of years ago on the general topic of student belonging. We signed one into support the Yes on 3, one on the Fair Share Amendment in 2022, and there have been others. And the point I wish to make to this body is that it's been done before, and it is within our authority as school committee members. Next, I would like to assure the body, this is your paragraph, Mr. Mayor Mike, that I want to assure the body that, as with previous resolutions brought forward and approved, this resolution follows the law, the rule of law, as well as supports the statements made by the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which were made a few days ago. I have more to say, but I will pause there because you really had the floor. I think your concern was about the legality. Oh, man, I need my crystal ball.
Why don't you finish, please?
All right. Okay. We here in this room, we are all in this room because we care deeply about education and children. We don't always agree about how to go about putting that caring into action, yet we continue to show up and do the work and try to figure it out. While we're in this room, we hold a role, and at times we know that we step into those roles, and the result is that we hear from others in our community, including our neighbors and friends, as well as strangers, and when we hear from them, we are in fact attacked and vilified. People assume the worst in us, or they demean us. But we know too that it hurts when this happens, but we can step out of this role. We can take off our hat or hats, as the case may be. But for those in our community who are trans, non-binary, or genderqueer, the attacks, vilification, dehumanization, and even attempted erasure come at them simply for being who they are. And if those of us in this room can understand the pain caused when we hold these roles and we're attacked holding these roles, then I believe we can take the important step of recognizing then how much greater the pain is when the attacks come at a person or when someone feels unsafe in their own school or community simply because of who they are. I am hoping, and I apologize because this is, as somebody else said, pretty charged up topic. I am hoping we can come together to give others a very clear message that we live in a community that espouses no place for hate. I want to declare loud and proud that we do care about all our students and we want them to be welcome in our community. We want everyone to know that all of our students, including our transgender and gender nonconforming students, are welcome and there's no place for hate. Many like to say that they would have marched in the civil rights or, depending on what you wear, burned your bra during the women's rights era. We find ourselves in another era. Whether you feel a moral obligation or not, I know each of you care about education. I do not believe this body would vote in a curriculum that says the world is flat. And although some people may believe that, but we know, thanks to science, that it is not flat. And so we vote a curriculum that aligns with science. Similarly, we know, thanks to science, that there are more than just two sets of chromosomes, chromosome pairs, even though some of us can't spell that word. I had to Google it. For certain, the distribution curve of chromosome pairs has mostly XX and XY. However, a person could have just an X or perhaps an XXY. And the chromosomes are just one part of the miracle of life. There are many other variables and combinations possible. That is true whether we personally believe it or not, whether our respective religions believe it or not, whether we officially recognize it or not. Thus, it is from this point of intersection between empathy and understanding and love for education and science that I bring forth this resolution. And I ask that you please join with me in drinking some Diet Coke. Join with me in supporting some of our most vulnerable students and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody who's here tonight, whether you spoke or didn't, especially Abbott. Abbott, this is twice in a week. We're in a meeting together. Thank you for being here and for your words. And thank you, Mrs. Visnick, for all the work that's gone into this and anybody that's helped you with it. I have just a couple of, I don't know if they're typos, but I get questions on a couple of pieces.
Sure.
And I'm grateful that this is in front of us, and I plan to support it just as one of
Typos
us.
belong to Rachel. Just
What's that? So I am so sorry, I can't get by as stumbling on a sentence.
Okay.
The second to last, be it further resolved, should there be a TO between schools and continue, or would that help? Recommits the district and schools to continue? Recommits this. You know, I get stuck on the grammar,
Or
sorry.
that the district and schools continue.
Recommits that?
Recommits that.
Sorry to do
To
this to you
continue.
folks.
Would work.
That the committee recommits the district and schools. Yeah, I think it's missing a to continue to ensure. I think that's one of the edits. I will say that we did have legal representation look at this, and there was an edit, and I think it was there, and I may have missed the to continue. Good catch.
Well, thank you. So I've got a couple of amendments I'd like to offer, if they make sense. One would be that word "to." The other, I just want to ask, where we use the letters for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning, should we be putting a plus after? So where it says that in one of the whereases, and then where we use the letters, should it be LGBTQ plus? I'm looking around for help. Yeah, I'm nodding. So I'd move that we
Amend that in each
do that,
instance.
yeah, wherever we need to, and I think the first time we see it is spelled out in the second whereas from the bottom on the front page, and then parenthetically the letters, and then there are a few more times, 2 more times on the second page. And then I guess I want to ask, we were asked to bring more clarity to the title, and so should we be doing that, and what would we put for language different in the title resolution to support? I mean, I've got a thought, if it makes sense. Should it be resolution to support our LGBTQ plus students? Yeah, exactly, I'm looking to, so we've got, yes, Alyssa, please, what have you got?
I mean, I'm just going to say, I tried to read it in there. I know that.
If you're going to talk, you have to be at the podium.
Okay. So I think that there are some gold standards already, rather than reinventing the wheel by motion, like incrementally. And so I think you could look at the Watertown one. But yes, to answer very straightforwardly, yes, I think it should say that, what you just said, as a title. And just to further add, there's a lot of preamble. So the whereas, I don't know if that's how you do it. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's how you will have to do it. But there is some lovely language that goes beyond the whereas, that sort of gives you a preamble for the purpose for why you are saying these things, that I think helps you with the unequivocalness that you're looking for. And I think I would suggest that if you do some amendments, you might think about doing the sort of why are you doing this? And then you can cite the law in Massachusetts, or you can do what some of these other districts have done, which is to say the law has not changed. So there's some excellent language in here that does cite the law, but it doesn't, it adds these kinds of unequivocal statements that explain the purpose for why you are doing this, that I think is a little bit of what you're trying to get at by changing the title.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being there, Alyssa.
Yeah.
When you look at what's on the page and you're referencing Watertown, are there some number of sentences that you think hit on that you would suggest and am I right in hearing that you would suggest we put them on the front of this?
Yes.
Okay, as a preamble, okay.
As a preamble, well, it's a preamble, and then the resolution that Watertown does is very similar. There's a couple things that are left out of the current version that we have, as I just heard it. such as providing adequate funding for LGBTQ awareness and anti-bullying training, providing for safe bathrooms, locker rooms, changing spaces, strengthening counseling and mental health services. So there's some very specific pieces that didn't make it in, although I think that you could read it in to what is already there, but that make it more specific. And again, being very specific might be helpful to you.
Okay.
Okay. I appreciate the specific examples. I think that's helpful to understand. I know that we have trouble wordsmithing at the table, especially in front of an audience with other agenda items that also have probably people in attendance. I also respect the fact that we have policies that usually say the what, and then we have procedures and handbooks and things like that that describe more of like the how, like, you know, how we're going to do those things. I wonder if it would be prudent for us this evening to adopt this and to listen to, I think Ms. Sherman brought it up and a number of speakers brought it up tonight, that this is just one step and that there's more work to do. And I wonder if the committee will entertain adopting this with the minor edits and the change to the title, and do the rest of the work, and bring, you know, modifications or additional specifics to the table at our next meeting, if possible. I'll go to Ms. Visnick and then Mayor Cahill.
I was going to suggest that same thing under the headline of I was doing my best to not let perfect be the enemy of good enough. And I do believe that time is of the essence. And so I'm not a fan of large changes at the table. And I recognize that improvement is possible. And I wish to recognize that I believe strongly that time is of the essence. So I agree with your plan.
Mayor Cahill.
When we asked Alyssa that question, I think what I heard from her was, yes, there is some preamble language. And then she went a step further and said there are also some additional whereases that might add more specifics. What if we went back and just looked for that preamble language and looked to tack it on the beginning?
And what if we did that next meeting? This will be on the books. A revision can be on the books next meeting.
Did you say that loudly enough? Everybody hear that? Yes. Okay. Sure. So then I'm going to make a proposed amendment that the title, and it seems that we should say the words out in the title and then use the acronym from there on. So the title would be Resolution to Support Our Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer Questioning Plus Students. And then each other place that is there where there's a whereas, and I think it's 4 whereases in a row, the 2 at the bottom of the front page, the 2 at the top of the second page. It would be LGBTQ plus. And then the last amendment is the word to, and the second to last, be it further resolved.
Second.
Schools and continue.
Thank you, Mayor Cahill. I wrote my initials down, Ms. Visnick. Okay. Lorinda Visnick with the second. Any discussion on the amendment? We'll vote the amendment.
No, not on the.
Okay, let's vote the amendment first. All those in favor? 5-0. Okay, so as amended, main motion, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank everybody for everything you said. Abbott, you're amazing. Okay, just know that. I also think that it would be in our best interest that there are some communities that seem like they might be a little further along than us, that we reach out to Watertown and speak with the people who have.
My sister.
I think I know who you're talking about. And I think it would just be a great meeting of the minds and putting things together, and, you know, like, let's hear from each other. So.
Ms. Visnick.
I guess I appreciate the ideal in that I'm going to come like fully clean. I did not author this resolution. I certainly edited it. I reviewed it. I cannot commit to doing that. I have like no time in my day. So I think that if somebody on this committee wants to volunteer to do that, or to work with someone in the audience, as I worked with many people in the audience to come up with both my statement and the resolution, I would 1000% applaud that. However, I just want to make it very clear, I cannot be the person to do that.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to
Thank
reach
you.
out.
Ms. Bisnick and Ms. Robinson, thanks. And we'll connect on agenda items and packets. Okay. Dr. Trocek, I know that I asked for the administration to take a look at this as well.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for doing that, and thank you for all of the folks that are here tonight. I do have just sort of a statement on behalf of the school district administration. Thank you for the opportunity to address the resolution that the school committee is proposing tonight. In the Beverly Public Schools, we are committed to continuously improving our school cultures so that all students and staff feel included and safe. This includes fostering an enhanced culture of respect and inclusivity and creating a school community where all students are free from harassment and discrimination. It is essential that our schools continue their support for all our students to reinforce that students come from all backgrounds and experiences and belong in our schools and in this community. Research consistently demonstrates that when schools take proactive steps to foster inclusivity through strong policies, affirming practices, and supportive educators, students experience improved mental health, academic success, and overall well-being. Massachusetts schools remain responsible for providing a safe and supportive learning environment for all students. Our guidance on non-discrimination on the basis of gender identity in public schools remains unchanged. Federal policies which threaten civil rights and constitutional protections will have far-reaching impacts on our students, staff, and schools. These policies may threaten the very core of our community and erode the values that define us as a nation. Our school and district leaders will continue implementing policies and practices that protect all students, including transgender, non-binary, LGBTQ+ students. The district has and will continue to partner with DESE's Safe School programs for LGBTQ students, which provides training, technical assistance, and implementation supports to help schools uphold these commitments. Hate has no home in our schools. Our future as a free society is dependent on every child, every family, and every educator feeling belonged and being treated with dignity and respect. We must work together so that all students in the Beverly Public Schools experience a safe, supportive, and affirming learning environment.
Thank you so much, Dr. Trocek. Karen, that might be a source for some preamble as well. I appreciate you putting the time into that. We have a main motion with the amendments as noted. Are there any more discussion? All those in favor of the resolution and the revolution, but yeah, five? Ms. Bisnick, yes. Thank you. And thank you all for attending. We'll connect.
Brief recess, so that people clear the.
Yeah, why don't we have a 5-minute recess? Thank you, everyone. Thank you for indulging the brief recess so we could meet with our friends and neighbors. We're going to return to our agenda as published, and we had item 6, which is items by consensus. These are warrants A, B, C, D, and E as listed for the amounts as listed in our agenda. Looking for a motion to approve as a group.
Motion.
Thank you, Dr. Silva.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick. We don't typically have discussion about all the bills we pay around here, but looking for hands, those who wish to approve all of these warrants and paying our bills. Okay, there we go, 5-0. And next, Dr. Turchek, if you could start your superintendent report, that would be wonderful.
I have 2 items tonight on the superintendent's report. The first is an overnight field trip for DECA to the Seaport Convention Center in Boston, and Kristen Murphy is here to tell us all about it, so come on up. Right on.
And just leave it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Krista Mariscalchi. I'm the marketing teacher at Beverly High School, DECA advisor. I'm here for approval for our DECA State Conference, which is taking place on February 27th through March 1st. We are at the Seaport. We got the Renaissance Hotel. Students will be competing in the competition for 2 days, starting on Thursday. Friday morning, finals will be Friday afternoon, and we will find out whether or not the students qualify for the international conference on Saturday early morning, late morning. We actually just found out that we just got 3 spots for the international conference for our community service and our chapter campaigns. So we already know we are going to the international conference with some students that will be attending the Leadership Academy. So I guess I'm just here for approval.
So the superintendent recommends an overnight field trip for DECA students competing in the state-level competition at the Convention Center Seaport in Boston, Massachusetts, February 27th through March 1st.
I'll make that motion.
Second. You can let go of the button if you're not talking. If you're talking, push the button.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Mayor Cahill.
Ms. Mariscalchi, thank you. 2 quick questions. How many teams qualified for states, and how many students make up those teams?
That's
I
a tough
I don't
one,
want to
but
stump you.
so we started at 167 students, and we have 107 that qualified for states.
That's fantastic.
So the makeup of teams and individuals, I'm not 100% sure of.
We had 107 students heading.
It's a lot.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I like to talk.
Mrs. Visnick is our IT department tonight. Thanks.
Just so the people at home can hear you. Are there any other questions? We have a motion, a second, a recommendation from the superintendent. All those in favor? 5-0. Very best of luck to your students.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
trip.
Good night, everyone.
And then my second order of business this evening is the district calendar. We are bringing it forward for approval. By policy, we need to bring it forward to the school committee by March 1st, so we have met that deadline. That is really small, so this year I sort of worked a little magic, and we're going to take each little piece one by one so we can all see what it is. So that is a document that you all have, the original calendar, and that is what will be posted on the website. But I thought I would pull out the highlights and just blow the little pictures up so you can see it a little better. In the 25-26 draft school calendar, the start of school will be on August 27th and 28th for the teachers. Those will be professional development days. September 3rd will be the grade 1 through 9 start date with a virtual day for grades 10 through 12. September 4th for all students for grades 1 through 12. And then September 5th is kindergarten and preschool start date. So those are the starting dates. I would preface that this calendar, as I do in each time, we, prior to bringing it forward to you, had an opportunity to preview it with union leadership, and I heard from Julia today that there were no particular questions on the calendar, that the feedback was that the couple of questions that they did have didn't pertain to the calendar itself, but just a couple of operational things outside of that. So just on that note. And this is a change from last year to this year. We're posting our school hours on our calendar. So many of you should know, or probably know, or might be aware that we added 10 minutes to the school day for students. And so those 10 minutes will be added at the start of the day. Our school hours would now be, Beverly High School would be from 8:05 to 2:33. Beverly Middle School would be from 8:35 to 3 p.m. Elementary schools would be from 7:40 to 2, and the preschool will remain at 8:15 to 1:15.
I've always had this question, and recently a constituent asked why the high school gets out at 2:33, and I believe it had something to do with passing time based on the 4-class-a-day schedule. And I was wondering, with advisory and with these additional minutes, if it matters. I don't know.
Well, the contract says I can add 10 minutes to the day, so it would either be 8:03, 8:02 to 8:30, or it would be 8:05 to 2:33. So I think everyone is pretty accustomed to the 2:33 end time, and so I would say that's probably originally came from a bell schedule that had a certain number of minutes in order to make passing time, but in contractually, the only extension we can make to the student day right now is 10 minutes, based upon the work that we just did in our contract, so that's why.
It's more, I was wondering what the history was.
I'm sure it was a bell schedule somewhere contractually.
Ms. Robinson?
It's really only a schedule that people in schools understand, and like everybody, it's how it is.
2:30.
That's how it is. I will stop wondering.
2:30-ish.
Okay.
All right, another thing I wanted to highlight is the early release dismissal schedule. So we tried to make our early release days a little more consistent, I think, for families and for staff and for students to keep them organized. This year, they were sort of sprinkled all over the calendar. Sometimes it was a Tuesday, sometimes it was a Thursday. So we settled in on the first Wednesday. And so on the first Wednesday of October, November, January, February, March, April, and May, those would be early release days. December, we did not do the first Wednesday because 11th and 12th are our conference days for our, and these are for elementary and middle school. And then November 26th and the last day of school are early release days for all schools. I often get the question, what do you mean by the holiday schedule? And really, it's just an adjustment for the middle school. The middle school early release is at, no, the middle school early release is, no, it's at, actually, that's not correct. Lisa, you still here? What's your, 1 o'clock, right? It's 1 o'clock. Yeah, it should say, that should say 1 o'clock.
Even though you changed the other times?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the elementary school early dismissal, I'm going to work on that one. Can I make some edits to that right now so you know? The high school, the middle school, let me start at the elementary. The elementary school is at noon. The high school would be at 12:30. And the middle school would be at 1. And then and that's for all of the elementary, all of the days. So that's very confusing to me, and I'm really sorry that I brought it forward confusing, but there you go. The middle school is 1 o'clock. That's what time. Middle school early release is 1 o'clock.
We have two different ones, and sometimes it's 1 o'clock, and then sometimes it's earlier, and I think it's a bus thing.
Right.
But I don't really.
I think I know what it is. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It is 12:30 on the days when the high school does not have an early release. It is 1 o'clock when the high school does. So I can't edit that because it's a screenshot, but I will tell you this now, the correct times. When it's the high school, it's 12:30. When it's the middle school, it is 12:30 on the holiday schedule, and it's 1 o'clock on the regular schedule because of the buses. Got that? All right. Elementary is always at noon, and middle school preschool is at 11. Did you get those changes? So when you vote on them, the edits will be for those times. Okay.
I'm going to say with the fixes to the release times as discussed
Release
by
time.
Dr.
Perfect.
Cherchak.
Andrea, you're on that one, right? You agree with that? 12:30 and 1, that's right? Okay. It's only the middle school that switches.
Lisa confirmed that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that. I could have noticed it. These are the federal and state holidays for the school breaks. There is no school on the 29th. We have Labor Day on the 1st. Oh, that's coming in a later slide. October 13th, November 11th, November 27th and 28th. December 24th through January 2nd is the December vacation. December 25th is a Christmas holiday. January 1st is New Year's Day. January 19th is Martin Luther King Day. February 16th is President's Day. April 20th through the 24th will be Patriots Holiday and April vacation. May 25th is Memorial Day. June 19th will be Juneteenth, and July 4th is Independence. So those are the federal and state holidays through school and school breaks for Massachusetts. There are a couple of election dates that we wanted to highlight. Currently, Lisa Kent informs us that 9/2, which is September 2nd, is a tentative municipal preliminary election. Mayor, I don't believe that's finalized yet. So the optional day for that, there's a second tentative date of September 9th. And so if, in fact, there's a switch, it would be shifted. It would just mean that there's a professional development day right now on November 2nd. If they change that municipal election to the 9th, is Julie Flowers here, right? You following that one? Then it would just flip. One would be the PD day and one would be a student day. So just keeping track on that, and until we get confirmation that it's definitive, those dates will just remain tentative. High school graduation, you got an edited version. We worked really hard at looking at the calendar, and we believe that we're all set to go with June 7th as the high school graduation date. We had originally aimed for the 14th, but I think given the calendar number of days and the formal end date and counting backwards, we can do it on the 7th. So thank you, Mr. Thomas, for reaching out and asking us to take another look at that. On this calendar, the last day of school with 180 days with no snow days would be June 16th, and the last day of school with 5 snow days would be June 24th. So that's the calendar. Any questions aside from the edits that I made on the early release day?
I would like to make a motion to approve the calendar as presented with the corrections to the early release dates as described, times, not dates, times, as described by Dr. Trocheck.
Second.
Does that make any sense? Okay. Is there some discussion from the school committee now that we have a motion on the table? No discussion? It sounds like we're ready to vote. All those in favor? 5-0. We have a calendar. And for those watching at home, you can start making your end of summer plans. It looks like students will return on the 3rd of September.
Unless
the municipal primary election happens, and it
And
happens.
it would be the 2nd.
Well, we're going to advocate to Ms. Kent that it has to happen on the 2nd.
I don't think it's her, she doesn't get to choose, like, it's set by someone else, right? Okay.
Okay.
Would be great to get an update.
Okay, so we should be clear with caregivers and parents that potentially we could welcome our 1st through 9th graders on the 2nd. We will make that small adjustment once we know. Okay, Dr. Silva.
This is a question that won't affect the schedule, but there was a proposal to look at alternatives for using the schools for voting and looking at other buildings. I don't think there was, it didn't come back to the table in terms of whether or not that was possible. Maybe looking in the future, just wondering what that update is and whether it's possible to not close schools for voting
Yes.
in the future.
I think Mayor Cahill might have something to add for that.
You're right, Mr. Silva, and we haven't really taken that hard look. Are there any one or two, well, without getting to any quorum numbers, is there anybody here who wants to join me in sitting down with the solicitor's office and looking that over? And what we've run into in the past is we don't have access in certain wards to non-school buildings, but we did say we'd look at it more closely. So you want to be the person? Everybody good with that? Okay.
Thank you.
Then we'll get something set up as quick as we can. Thanks.
I appreciate that, picking that back up. Okay. I guess that's the end of the superintendent's report. I need to figure out how to share my screen next.
Madam President, could I say one more thing?
You may.
On that point? Not to call her out in the audience, but the city council president is here, and she and I both know that under the city charter, the city clerk's office is the one department that doesn't report to the mayor, reports to the city council. So for us to have that conversation about brainstorming and looking for non-school alternatives, we should have somebody, either you or somebody you designate, be in that conversation. That good? Thanks.
Thank you. I think we're going to spend a year getting to know our city charter, our home rule charter, and all of its little nuances and quirks, and yes, great. Okay.
That'll be the hottest BevCam show.
It will. Yeah, we should have a quiz show, like, at the end of, like, our education process there. Okay. School committee chair updates. I only did slides for the superintendent update. Looks a lot like the last set of slides, and I'm going to see if I can drive these. Want to remind everyone of our mission statement. I think that's key to the process, to remember that we are here seeking an educational leader for our students, and these are the goals that we have set for our students in our policy and in a lot of our district improvement plans. We're centered around our students and providing them the best opportunity for personal growth so that they can compete in our global economy. And we have MASC under contract. You can check that off. We had the contract reviewed and signed, and I believe a purchase order was in its processes. MASC said they knew where to find us. They were a little less worried about that and wanted to get right to work. So I've had 3 or 4 conversations already with our field rep, Alicia Mallon. She was sad to say she has a conflict. She's leading another program this evening and wasn't able to join us in person, but rest assured, she and I have been communicating a lot to provide the committee with some information tonight and to take the next actions after we make decisions here at the table. She'll also be watching this recorded version, so hi, Alicia. Nice to have you on board. The things that are really the next steps that in our last session I said we would accomplish at tonight's meeting are to confirm a draft timeline, to confirm a stakeholder survey, and to authorize the chair to get that out into the community. We will discuss our screening committee, and I'll report out on how many applicants we have, and then we'll talk a bit about recruitment materials. So tonight we must establish our complete timeline. A draft was provided in the packet. I have already received a little bit of feedback that it might not be aggressive enough and that we might want to move some of the timelines, compress them a little bit more to give the ideal candidate more a time to know if they're going to be a finalist and make any notifications that he, she, or they may need to make in their own district if we get someone that is currently in another district. We need to talk about the screening committee, and then again, the chair will need authorization on the stakeholder survey. A sample of that survey was sent to you in the packet as a link. We made a slight update to the first identifying question that was sent again to you, and we can look at it on the screen. And then in our next meeting, which I plan to be our regular committee of the whole on the 26th, we'll need to confirm all advertisements and brochures before we spend money to publish them. We will open the post and start collecting applications, and the screening committee members will be named, and we'll set that first meeting date for orienting those people who are on the search committee. And we already completed those other items at our last meeting. Oops, and I'm not on that computer, I'm on this computer. Okay, so we had decided at our last meeting to do an external search and to use a full service search/selection consultant, which is MASC. Our field rep has been designated, and we have a budget of technically only $13,000, so we'll try to keep our expenses in check. I did get assurances that a lot of the materials will be done electronically to save on paper and binders and all the things that we've had to sort of front in the past. Technology's come a long way, and we will have ways to keep that information confidential as well. And then, as we clarified in our last meeting, internal candidates are encouraged to apply and will have the same consideration as our external candidates. Next, I think it was Mayor Cahill who gave me the action item to figure out what other searches are ongoing right now. The official list includes 2 that MASC is leading. I do believe there is a third one that they're just about to make public. That's maybe a little closer to us, but I don't have permission to share that yet. You will get these slides as soon as we leave here tonight. It has links to all of the brochures from other districts, as well as a list of the deadlines that they had put in place for their candidates. So it's a little bit of an eye chart on here, but you will be provided all this information so you can get a flavor of what other searches are ongoing. I also included a list of some other executive type positions that are open in other districts as well. And then their recently closed searches, MASC seems to be one of the bigger games in town in terms of doing these searches, and Alicia and I spoke a lot about the different connection points they have. We'll talk about that a little bit more throughout Massachusetts, through all of the groups with whom they work, and their own distribution through MASS, which is the Mass Association of School Superintendents. So that's in reverse order. Let's see. And this is another list of recently completed searches that MASC was the selection consultant. So a lot of names that we probably recognize on that list. I think Mr. B is on there, right, Mr. Bauer? Oh yeah, it's an eye chart. You'll get it in your packets. Let's not waste any more time on that. Another eye chart. So, in your packet was the timeline, and this timeline, I already had backed up some of the MASC dates. Basically, MASC thinks we are in a prime position to attract a great candidate, just because there aren't a lot of other searches going on, and Beverly has a good reputation. So, optimism abounds, and I expressed how we wanted to ensure that there was going to be an opportunity for a smooth transition, that a selected candidate would have time to visit our schools while school was still in session. So this timeline was refined, and then what I would like to ask the school committee to consider is if we should pull back some of these dates even further to maybe parallel path a couple of the opportunities so that we can get to our finalist in April versus May. So, I don't know if we need a motion to start the discussion, or do you want to just, okay, go ahead, Mayor Kay.
I've been looking, as you suggested a few minutes ago, that we might be trying to do so. The stakeholder input begins tomorrow. No.
Tonight.
Yes, tonight.
Maybe tonight. but
Tonight,
yeah,
tomorrow.
tonight or tomorrow.
And it looks like it runs for 11 days. Is that a typical? Is that truncated? Is that long?
So, in other searches, sometimes there are stakeholder forums, and I don't believe we have the luxury of time for all of that. And so this is one of those cases where we could potentially, if we advertise it really.
And screen and decide who to interview, right?
Right.
So where do you see the real windows to do any squeezing of this? It's now up front?
This first week of March, the advertising and the brochures, obviously, the brochure, we'll make good progress on that tonight when we look at the district profile and that information. But the recommendation is to be informed by our stakeholder survey. I think by doing it in a survey format and setting up the questions in a way that's empirical, we'll be able to get that synthesized more quickly than maybe the 2 weeks that had originally been scheduled for that. And so the vision perhaps would be to, as soon as we have enough information, we could even hold a special meeting to approve our advertisement, or we could even look to the advertisement we placed last time that actually doesn't have a ton of the specifics, and that the superintendent profile actually followed people's applications or came out while applications were being accepted. So sort of parallel tracking some of these activities rather than making it serial.
And for our understanding and for the communities, everything you're talking about up through posting the position is school committee work. And then the screening committee's work begins with an orientation session, and its work is specifically screening and looking at applicants, deciding which applicants to bring in for first-round interviews.
Yes, our
And
facilitator
then
will, yes.
narrowing those to recommend forward.
Correct. We don't know how many applications we'll get. I'm trying to think back last time whether we had 20 that whittled down to 11 interviews, that whittled down to
25, 11.
yeah, 25, 11, and then to 3. Really, the screening committee's job isn't to pick the superintendent, but to pick candidates that match the criteria that are defined by our stakeholders, and to give the school committee at least 2, but probably no more than 4 finalists. And then, of course, our facilitator will have that conversation with the finalists, because finalists do become a public record and would meet with us in open session of the school committee. So an idea might be, instead of the 3rd week of March, moving the screening committee back to the 1st week of March to do its orientation while those applications are being evaluated by our facilitator, who will be receiving, so nothing will come directly to the district or to any of the school committee members. It will go through the professional MASC facilitator that we've hired. So
I was going to say that as well.
recommend that
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to make a motion, if it's easier, since I'm a little bit more familiar with the document, that we update our draft timeline to have the items listed in the 1st week of March actually run concurrent or in parallel as much as possible, and that we shorten the stakeholder survey time, I don't know, to 72 hours to 60 hours. I don't know what the right timing is, but if it were to go live tonight or tomorrow morning, I'm not sure people are going to jump on it on Valentine's Day, but they might jump on it tomorrow, and they probably would forget about it over the weekend and have a reminder on Monday. I think it would be incumbent upon us to make sure that the press gets it, that all of the different PTOs and our principals perhaps send it out in a morning announcement to let students, staff, caregivers, families, community members know that the stakeholder survey is the opportunity to help inform the superintendent profile. Dr. Silva, then Mayor Cahill.
Looking at the screening committee presenting the list of candidate finalists, is it reasonable to just ask for 3 candidates rather than it being 2? I think 2 candidates is not ideal for the school committee, to consider. I would say a minimum of 3 is ideal.
I would offer from our experience that 3rd one is always tricky, and the 3 and 4, and one may elect not to move forward, knowing that there are 4 candidates, and may bow out or may have already received an offer from another district, although there's not many districts near us. I think you have to kind of leave it to the screening committee and the facilitator to make that decision about 3 or 4. But certainly 2 is a challenge for that same reason.
3 or 4 I think 2 is just it's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Heard.
I would recommend 3 or 4.
Okay. So I was starting to make a motion, but Mayor Cahill, maybe you want to inform my motion.
I guess what shows here is about 10 days with 2 weekends involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we're feeling is a thought that if we cut down on that time, we can get to some other things more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure you're suggesting 3 days, 5 days. I don't want to squeeze it too much. People need a chance to, they need a chance to weigh in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we look at it as a week.
Thursday to Thursday?
Thursday to Thursday, given,
Okay.
Given some time. And maybe what, Yeah, maybe it's a week, and maybe is there any other way for people to give input during that window of time? Beyond the survey?
We have many ways to reach us on the school committee, but it's really needing to go to the facilitator.
Well, so I think that with my wicked nerd hat on, I would say to you that if you let people start giving you free form answers that are not like quote unquote coded in the same way as everything else that everybody else is answering off the survey, you're giving yourself a huge mess to try to.
Well, and we'll look
Yes,
at the
I am. Yes, yes, thank you.
We'll look at and approve the survey, and by design, MASC has a lot of experience running these surveys, and they have given us something that should be workable.
I don't know if you remember this, but do you have any idea, like, when you did a survey for the last time, how many, what was the percentage-ish of what we got back?
Yeah, so I think the last time we had started in a November timeframe, and we had forums in buildings and listening sessions, and we had a lot of extra opportunity that required a lot of sort of massaging by the Collins Center, and that's a little bit outside the scope of the MASC process. I mean, they certainly could do that if that's something we felt we had time for. But this survey uses a Survey Monkey, and it actually has some of those things that were already said the last time that you can drag and drop and reprioritize, as well as get free form from people and to get themes and information. And then as well, it has, pick from lists and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think that we should be able to get a broader scope. I think it was only like 100 people that did the survey because there were those other opportunities. And this would be like our one
Chance.
broad cast of the net. And we'd heavily advertise it.
So I wonder if it's quote unquote worth trying to save those couple of days versus let it go 10 or 11 days so we have 2 weekends, right? Where this is our one chance and we are trying to cast that net. Is it really, are we pulling back enough days to be useful somewhere else for some other task versus leaving those days on this particular step so that we can send multiple, nag messages home to say the window is closing. And for any given person, the only time they would have chance to do something like this would be on the weekend.
Right. Yeah. I think that when we send out emails to our parents and caregivers and even our students, there's sort of a shelf life for, I want to take that survey, I'll get back to it. I can't do it right now. And I think the way that this one is designed is it's not intended to take too long. So even if you don't have time to type in the boxes, you can at least drag and drop the priorities and identify who you are in like 2 seconds or less. And so I think technology has probably improved this survey. And we wouldn't necessarily want it to fall off that front page of someone's inbox. And so the additional time would be to recast the net. But I think what I'm trying to suggest is that we don't necessarily have to wait for the full report of the stakeholders and the superintendent profile to open up the window to start accepting applications. But what we do need to consider is even our own superintendent's contract, if she wasn't going to be, if it wasn't the end of the contract, if she were to be going to another district, it actually would require her to have 120 days notice. And so if we are looking for sitting superintendents to be in our candidate pool, it would be really important for us to move that notification date of finalists back as far as we can from where it is right now. And so I think we're going to have to parallel path some things, and I think we'll just have to put in a lot of effort to cast that net wide and maybe with more frequency so that we get as many people to answer the survey, even if they just do the drag and drop pieces and the check boxes. Dr. Silva.
I'm just thinking of this as potentially a way to help facilitate or accelerate the process. And maybe it's, and maybe it's not typical, but is it possible to schedule phone interviews after the, let's say, 3 candidates are provided, that school committee members can schedule one-on-one phone interviews? You can't do that?
No, it's not how it works. So we're one body, and we have to work at the table as one body. And so the candidates will have equal access and opportunity to us. We actually will have a pretty fair process for when the candidates come to the table. Mayor Cahill.
So, Madam President, if we go to the 20th and we ask our MASC person to be ready for Monday, the 24th, to meet with us, and then they take from that, and the applications are out by the 27th, 28th. I'm just thinking out loud. I mean, it's looking like the thought is the applications are going to be out for 4 weeks. So gaining 2-3 business days is gaining 2-3 business days, right? It's a little confusing. I will, as I'm kind of thinking out loud there, I'm also wondering what March 28th is meant to be. Credential reviews and scheduling interview times by consultant, but the consultant won't know who to schedule interviews with until
Yeah, so
until we meet and look at all the applications, right?
until the screening committee meets.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Until the screening committee
meets, yeah. So I'm thinking we can pull back from that third week of March to the first week of March for having the screening committee do the orientations, and then that would allow us to pull back to the second week of March, or March 15th, the application deadline, and give us 2 more weeks. That would give candidates that are, in seated positions a better chance of understanding if they like us, if they are going to be finalists, and that will kind of help us to move everything pretty much up 2 weeks.
The only way, that only allows 2 weeks for applications to be submitted, and I think it was looking like 4 weeks, and I would ask our MASC person, is 3 weeks long enough? But 2 weeks doesn't seem long enough.
Okay, 3 weeks for applications, and so I
Versus
guess
4.
Yeah.
3 weeks and keep it open for longer, but we could see what's come.
My hand is up.
Okay, Ms. Bisnick.
I would like to respectfully disagree because there are so few superintendent openings right now. It's not like we're going to be, I don't know. I just think that if you want to be a superintendent, you're jonesing to be a superintendent. That's really, goodness gracious, help us. Right. And so there's like one listserv, right? There's just one place to get your information. And so it's not like all of a sudden somebody's going to jump out of the forest and say, oh, let me go look at the listserv. Oh, I'm a day late. I missed the deadline.
So
I think 2 weeks is enough.
Yeah. Okay. And so I'd also point out, we're not too late in this process, but I just want to go back. The other searches have February 28th and February 21st as their deadline. I don't know what the start time was, but it seems like people should have their resumes together. And if they're in our general, I don't know, Central Berkshire, probably not a good.
I don't look at any of those 4 searches as being necessarily relevant to ours in terms of geography or type of district.
But if they want the ocean front and Lynch Park, they might relocate. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be silly, but I will work with Alicia tomorrow to see how much tighter we can make this, but I would like, I guess, consensus that this timeline, potentially moving things up by 2 weeks, would be my motion. I would like to have the authorization from the school committee to use this timeline as drafted with the intention to work with MASC to squeeze up by 2 weeks, getting to our
How would you
finalists.
say move it up as much as is advisable?
As
They
is-
may come right back and say, that's too little time.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
How much
well,
is
I already squeezed it here, so I will continue the conversation with her tomorrow.
Second.
Thank you. That's my motion, and I believe you'll third it? Okay. Trust me. We need to get the advertisements out as soon as practical and open up that window as soon as possible. So we'll do what we can, and that would give 7 days to cast our net as many times as possible to as many people as possible, and to use technology in our favor to capture as much of the hearts and minds of our community about what our next superintendent should be. Okay. Motion on the table as amended or qualified.
Can I ask, is it agreed that 2 is not a good number?
We'll get
Or is that
we'll
later?
get to those steps. Yeah.
Okay, all right,
We'll get to those steps of what we're going to task the screening committee to do.
all right.
So all those in favor of the timeline with me working with MASC on the advisable squeezing, okay, 5-0. Okay. Next, we should look at the questions for the stakeholder survey. These are the questions, just in a concise one-page slide, and we can look at it in the survey format if you would like. But the questions are what best describes your relationship to the Beverly Public Schools, and much like our screening committee questions, people can choose as many hats as they wear in their relationship. So there's up to 9 choices. I don't think we have anyone that will pick both student and staff, but they could pick many roles. What are the strengths of the Beverly Public Schools that you'd like to see continue under the next superintendent? That is one of the open response cells that has a suggested size of a couple of paragraphs. And if the size of the cell makes anyone concerned, I can talk to Alicia about how to make that smaller or larger, but what are the challenges the next superintendent will face? That's also an open response. I see I forgot to paste that in there. What experience is the most important? And that's an ordered list of 6 choices with a 7th being comment, and then there's a box at the bottom. What are the most important leadership qualities of the next superintendent? This is a list of 12 qualities and a 13th choice of comment, which is at the bottom. And is there anything else you'd like to share with the school committee? This is the open response for both of those checklists. Is there anything missing, or yes?
Just a thought.
There's a typo.
A lot of open responses there. Would it be good to have a drop-down menu for most of those questions with, if you would like to add anything, and then have something at the end be an open response, just to make sure people don't start it and then feel just like there's too much writing to do.
Yeah, question 2 could be a list, and then have an open other. I'm looking at the survey.
Yeah, you're looking right at it.
Yeah, I saw it earlier.
Ms. Visnick, I can open it too.
I think there's a really thin line there, because if you give a list, who's to say that we would cover the bulk, right? I mean, I guess you could always have an other box and let them type something else.
Right.
But certainly that approach would make it go faster. There's just a thin line where you think, okay, I was thorough enough that I put and you don't want to like lead the witness and put things into their brain that they might not have been thinking about. Right? So that's the trade-off. If you just leave it, fill in your own, choose your own adventure, then you get something more natural.
Delia.
Oh, good.
I was just going to say, from a student perspective, because I know you mentioned trying to get students to fill out the form, I think the less work it seems to be, the more likely you're going to get students to fill it out. I'm not sure if that would be the same situation for adults, because I think you have more adults that would want to write a paragraph. So the maybe not. But the more, for students at least, the more easy it is to just do it, the more likely you will get student impact.
Okay, thanks. Well,
No one's gonna do that.
So that's one of my questions, I guess, too, is like MASC has a science to this, and they know to have a mixture of check the boxes, drag the priorities, have some open responses. I'm wondering if we make those cells look a little smaller and then less intimidating, yet still have the flexibility if someone wants to write a lot and/or write it in Word and spell check it and proofread it and drop it in, they can do that, the flexibility.
I mean, for number 2, for example, you could just say, you could say list the 5 strengths.
Rachel, are you showing it? I have this survey.
Yeah, I have it, but it's not opening from, it just keeps failing, oh. Yeah. Oh, you know what, because I'm only sharing an app, I'm not sharing the screen. Let me share my screen.
Oh, it was the first email
Here it is.
from Ms. Fairchild, and then it was a reply.
Yeah, it was a reply to the first message, yes, sorry. Yeah, and it was the same link that was in the document that I had shared. I shared the link just to make it easier, but, let's see if I can scroll. So these were the check boxes, and then right now the cell looks a little intimidating because it's large, so maybe we make it smaller. And someone suggested, what are the 5, like cap it, like what are the 3, what are the 5, what are the?
That's why, I mean, it is open, but you limit it to 5. You limit it to a number. And you can tally.
You're only suggesting a number. That text box isn't going to stop you.
Right.
Or use a run-on sentence. You can put 10 in one sentence. Come on now.
So make it look like less work, make it easier, maybe subtly suggest via mind control that they limit to 5 so that we can have a tally of this person's 5 and that person's 5. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that scientific on the open responses, but we can try.
Could you have the boxes like grow if people wanted to type more, so they like initially look small and then get bigger?
It looks like it does this direction, but I will ask that if we can make it smaller and grow.
I really,
It actually does
I know
grow.
you,
If you slide it to the right, you can stretch it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, Miss Abel.
Let's go ahead.
I know you said MASC has a whole bunch of experience doing this, so I would like to pose to them whether the wording could suggest, a number that we hope people adhere to. And I've heard the number 5. I would say to you that 3 is a fantastic number. It's curved, smooth,
Magic number.
no rough edges, but
Symmetric.
it's just a very common number, right? And I think it's less intimidating. Sometimes people see, give me your top 5, and they're like, well, I don't know if I can think of 5, and then they don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's 1. You have to sing that song now.
Okay, so we'll try to shrink the boxes, we'll try to suggest 3, but it's open response still on this one. And then for challenges, similar approach. I tend to agree with Ms. Bisnick that we can't portend to know all of the answers, so we can't make them all check boxes. And then this comments box also, we'll ask her to shrink it down. It is pretty easy to change the size. If you have a lot to say, you can find that corner. But we'll have it sort of preset for smaller, so it's less. Okay. Can I have a motion to, what's the motion to authorize the chair to initiate the green light the
Go live on the survey.
Motion.
start the survey? Okay. With those changes, is there a second? Oh, okay, thank you. I didn't hear your card. Any more comments before we vote? Okay. All those in favor? Okay, we'll get that out, and I will make sure you all have the link. I'll make sure the press gets the link. We'll make sure it gets out in a message, and we'll talk about messaging in executive session. Next, Delia, thank you so much for staying. Appreciate your support and help. Screening committee. Okay, let's jump back to the slides. So, good news is we had 65 people apply to be on our screening committee.
Nice.
Bad news is the only like manageable, not unwieldy size is about 12 to 15 screeners, plus the facilitators, plus a couple school committee members.
Madam President.
And I think a lot of it, as I look through the list and people's availability, I think that that may play a factor depending on where our dates actually land. People had made comments about certain days they weren't available or certain weeks that they would be away, and I think that's going to play a factor. But for all intents and purposes, the representation across the district is very strong, from students to paras to teachers at all levels, except for the high school. We would want to look to see if there's a teacher or a Unit B member or somebody at the high school level in our district. I think that's the one area where I couldn't find one of those to fit in. But in terms of overlap, we have caregivers that have middle schoolers and high schoolers and elementary school and preschool, and just a very great turnout in terms of people that are interested and mostly available. So it will really come down to sort of some scheduling. And so the chair will bring that to our next meeting, whether it's an earlier meeting on the 24th or to the 26th. We'll have that settled so that we can schedule that orientation and make sure everybody's on board and ready to work.
Question.
Yes.
Two, actually. Can you change what you're sharing again?
Oh, it's not.
And the second one is, what is this 24th/26th question, meaning? You just named two dates?
Yeah. So our plan is to meet on the 26th, but if potentially we can have a shorter, specific agenda item, which still would be allowed to be remote if needed, to approve an advertisement, I think that we would, maybe you're busy on the 24th?
I just need to block it out if I need to get home.
I will schedule, but I think we would probably look to do remote while we still have like 2 or 3 weeks of availability of doing that. Just to get like an ad published sooner and not hold it until the 26th.
And do you imagine, even if it's remote, that it'll be in the evening? Or do you think, like, during work?
It could be at 11 p.m. if we wanted, although I'm asleep at 10.
I just didn't know, like, for instance, maybe we're trying to do it during the mayor's work hours. That's a tougher lift for me.
It's 24/7 though, right? You're always in the back.
I would say if there's a way to save a little bit of time and it makes it worth meeting before the 26th,
Yeah.
let's just try to be flexible on when. I would imagine it'd be a pretty brief meeting for the purposes of green lighting,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So just because February is a short month, when are you going to let the community know if they're going to be on the committee? And then when would they have to meet? Like, I'm just trying to.
So between now and then, Ms. Bergeron and I need to reconfirm people's availability once the schedule is set.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to set that schedule tomorrow with MASC to squeeze it as much as we can. To bring it back as much as we can and set that date.
And then
before that date, we would need to get an ad out there and start collecting.
Okay. All right. So the community doesn't. All right. I was just making sure they had a couple weeks to be ready to meet.
Yes. And I think our first impressions were that the committee would start meeting in the end of February, but
now
this has
earlier.
already been pushed to March, and now we're trying to squeeze it back towards February, but it will still be that first week of March, probably. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Gonna let me go. Yeah, okay. So, timeline, survey, materials and advertisement. In order for MASC to create the brochure and the ad, we needed to provide a district profile, and that was shared as a link to a document. I don't know if people brought any suggestions. I did go back into the document today. I got the finance department to put the financial forecast document from the financial forecasting committee up front and center with a little label on it even. And so that actually has a really good snapshot of the district's spending and projections and the whole look at the city. So I felt like that was the one update since Friday's packet went out that was probably helpful. I also had sort of a question in that packet about what other community partners we want to reference. I talked about the Beverly Public Schools connections, community connections, and what's that?
Was that actual word in? Is community connections actually?
Yes.
Okay, I was.
But I just said
questioned about
Beverly
that.
Community Connections, and
Yeah.
today I went back in Beverly Public Schools, BPS Community
Yeah.
Connections.
I was-
And I provided a
noticed that.
link to the district page, which might need a few updates, but just so people could have a better sense of how it was a partnership with all the communities. So we listed out some. I've already thought of a couple just as I'm sitting here that we might want to add. But if I could ask people to send me a list of any additions. I also tried to think of all the schools that are in Beverly, because that's another piece of it. We actually have so many schools. I couldn't even list all the early education ones. But we have a lot of K-8s right here within our fair city. So if anyone felt like anything was missing, please let me know tomorrow. That document will get turned over to MASC as of tomorrow to create the brochure. We also can look at the links to other districts to see how they did their brochures. The only pictures that I found were of our middle and high school in a digital format that would be usable, but if there were any other images, and Mayor, maybe you know from the city side, if there's any images, you have some more. Oh, okay.
We have a stock photo of everything.
Of every building. Oh, wow. Okay. I noticed I went to each school and there were just kids and teachers on most of the elementaries. Okay.
I don't know if it's Mike Collins that has them. I don't know, but we had photos of every school.
Okay. So if we can put those in like a drive, a Google Drive.
Yeah,
Okay. I alluded to this, yes.
I apologize because I blew through those documents pretty fast. So I apologize if I'm asking a quote-unquote stupid question. Is our after dark relationships in there?
No, those aren't mentioned. So maybe I can work with the superintendent just to add a little bit more about,
The designation for that and for that early college.
yeah.
Yeah, the pathways, kind of something about the pathways. Thank you.
Any narrative you need is in Mark's program of studies, which hopefully we'll talk about a little bit anyway, but
Yeah.
he just did a nice read of all the descriptions.
Yeah, okay, so early college
The
and
portrait of the
after dark.
graduate.
Alone again.
Vision of the graduate. I did put our
Vision
mission
of the
statement, vision of
Vision or portrait? What school am I
the
at?
graduate. Okay. Okay, and so those will all get put into a brochure for us to look at, and then I think PDF is the way to go, but they technically can do mailings of hard copies for us. They did say they have great relationships with Harvard and some of the other schools where teachers go to get their masters or their doctorates, and that they generally have a way to distribute to people in those programs as well. So I think, digital is our friend. And then the professional organizations like MASS, advertisements, the usual places like School Spring and any other places that we feel really important. Were there any other school committee specific requests that I should let Alicia know about tomorrow? No?
Brochure usually maintained, like once the brochure is put together, is it revisited in a couple of years, just an update, or does it go away?
I think it just kind of goes away because it's specific to the superintendent search and it has like data. So Emma helped me immensely with all the data, all the breakdown of all the different types of employees and our number of students and all of that. Okay. I think we have already taken care of the possible motions for that. So I'm going to stop sharing. The last thing on the chairs updates is just meetings and dates, and as we just discussed, the 26th is our committee of the whole. There is a conflict with a community event at the Cabot that's being hosted by Green Beverly on the 26th. I think they said doors open at 5:30, but the program doesn't, yeah, it's from 6 to 8. Is there anyone that needs us to move the committee of the whole to 8 p.m. that evening, or we'll keep it at 7:30? Is F&F going to be moving?
I have that in my F&F report.
I will leave it there then and ask for the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities to do a report, because there were a number of things in your packet too, I noticed.
Oh, I know, I have a whole bunch. All right, so the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities last met on Tuesday, January 21st, because we just want to try to maybe hit every day of the week this semester. And most of what we talked about is down here in voting. You're going to get to in a minute. The big thing we talked about in that January meeting was the fact that we have a policy that says we don't use insecticide or rodenticide in our schools, and why, for the safety of children. And Bob Shirley was here, Director of Buildings and Grounds for the schools, and he talked about the fact that he did a survey. He asked staff to report over a period of time how many either rodents or evidence of rodents were noted by the staff, and the biggest number reported was at the high school. And so he would like to run a pilot this summer when the building is much less occupied, and he wants to put in bait boxes. Already had a better name for them than that, but I think that's a term everybody can relate to. But the bait box contains a rodenticide, and the way he described it is the rodents go in, it's a food source, they eat the food, and as soon as they drink any water, they meet their maker. Yes. And so, like, I don't know how else to say it. It just feels so bad. So there's trade-offs. There are a lot of trade-offs. But before he can even consider doing that pilot, we would have to revisit that policy and vote to set it aside, because our policy says no chemicals in the schools or even on the grass of the schools, because we don't want our children exposed to chemicals. So please watch for that policy to come forward in the next month or two. We kind of set it aside in F&F as, we have quote unquote plenty of time to bring it forward before the summertime. All right, so that, and we did, amongst the administration, we did talk about moving the next meeting to Thursday, February 27th, to make that room from 6 to like 7:30 available for people to go to that event at the Cabot. So hopefully, Dr. Silva, you're available. I think I already asked you. I think we talked about that at that last meeting. Okay, so now we have all these items for voting. The first of the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities to bring forward for a first reading a set of policies. They were in your packet. I'm going to read their names and numbers. DA, fiscal management goals. DB, annual budget. DO, restricted use of tax identification exemption number. EBC, emergency plans. And ECAC, ACDC, vandalism. All right, so at our next meeting, we'll vote on those. Everybody, if there are changes in the document, when you open it up, you'll see them via the track changes. If there are no changes, it's just for a review, and we can vote it to be renewed as is, and we just update the date on it. Just a reminder of how the little policy thing works. Gifts to schools. The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends the approval of the attached December 2024 gifts to schools totaling $1,665.69.
I'll make that motion with gratitude.
With gratitude, absolutely.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? 5-0.
Oh, and the little file was in your packet if you want to see who who gave what. Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends approval of the attached budget transfer number 721. Again, these documents were in your packet.
Second. Any questions? We lost Emma. It was recommended by the Finance and Facilities. All those in favor? 5-0. I think I remember. I was at that meeting, sort of playing Vanna on the side.
The bulk of that budget move is out of reserved for negotiations. Grants. The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends the approval of the attached other state and federal grants totaling $12,500.
So move.
Second. Oh, Karen, thank you. All those in favor? 5-0.
A new high school student activity account. I will remind everybody that we have to, as a school committee, approve anytime a student activity account is created. And so we had a new request, and then the idea is that every time, like, let's say class of 2025 at the end of this year, that student activity account will go away, and we'll just keep the list as up to date as possible. We found that we had gotten a little bit of out of date, so we're trying to be really on top of it. So the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends approval of the attached student activity account, a new account set up for the BHS Interact Club, which is like baby Rotary.
Second. All those in favor? 5-0. Okay.
And finally, the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends approval of the attached proposed summer school salary rates for all Beverly Public School programs.
I'll make that motion. Second. Thank you.
Second.
Are there any questions? All those in favor? 5-0.
Okay, and usually I conclude with reminding everybody of our next meeting, so I'm going to say it again. And Donna, I believe, has already checked on the availability of the room for us. We will meet at the same time. Yeah, we had that conversation. Maybe Aaron did it, I'm sorry. We're going to meet on Thursday, February 27th at 6:15.
Is that here? I missed that. Is that here?
I think that I need to go back and look at my email and see who told me they checked on a room availability.
Okay, I'll
I
just
hope
check.
that it's here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Coelho. We're almost done. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like a plan. We will. And we are missing Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza this evening, but I believe that Ms. Robinson, you will give the committee a brief report.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so the Committee for Curriculum Instruction and Student Life met this evening. We heard from our student representatives. Our 8th graders are looking forward to the red carpet dance, marking the last big event of their middle school years. Our high school representatives shared updates on midterms, BHS Career Day, Adams Family Play that's coming up, and the upcoming women's empowerment trip to Italy. Attendance on Saturdays for teachers has been close to 95%. For students, we are at about the 60% mark for the January 25th Saturday. Of note, there's been an increase in attendance at Beverly High School for about 16% and Centerville 10%. Mr. Thomas reports that 9th grade will remain leveled for the 25-26. Leveled.
Yeah.
Leveled. That's what I said, right? Okay. Leveled. So there will be honors and college prep courses offered for the 25-26 school year. He also reviewed changes to the program studies, including new language on competency determination with the removal of MCAS as a graduation requirement. Early college is in its early stages, pending grant approval for the fall. New courses are being added, including a grammar course. Over the course of the next few weeks, course selection will be open. Guidance counselors will be available for support. Eduseer, which is online offerings, remains an option. And there was a suggestion from Mr. Fiore to create a program of studies for BMS to better showcase course offerings for middle school. Dr. Flaherty gave a comprehensive report on MCAS. I would encourage you to watch the meeting on BevCam For specifics, Beverly schools continue to make progress with MCAS results showing the district solidly within or a little above the state average. Overall achievement scores are improving, and all schools have made moderate or substantial progress in accountability ratings. Subgroups, including students with disabilities, low-income students, and Hispanic Latino students, showed moderate gains, reflecting efforts to close achievement gaps. Mr. Thomas also said that the high school's Flex Block has been helpful in supporting student growth, and he also reinforced the district's commitment to ensure all students achieve at grade level and discuss the importance of attendance. Policies JFABC, the admission of transfer students, JFB, open enrollment, and JFBB, school choice, were brought forward for a first meeting. First reading, I'm sorry. Is there anything else I need to add to that?
Nope, they'll just be on our next committee of the whole
Okay.
agenda for our first reading as the committee of the whole. And the changes were minimal to just one of the three, so the other two will be reviewed.
And the next CISL meeting will be held on Wednesday, March 12th.
Thank you so much. And we also have on the agenda this evening, first reading for policy IHB, which was in your packet. We'll bring that again to our next meeting for a vote. And policies JFABD are homeless student enrollment rights and services, as well as JCA, assignment of students to schools, are in our packet for a second reading and vote. And I must admit, I believe they came out of the CISL two meetings ago, or a meeting ago, the December meeting, okay. And I'm getting them all out of order now because I have my first reading stapled to my second readings. Okay, so the homeless student enrollment rights and services was recommended to be marked as a review. Or is this the new one to adopt? It says it
believe
was
so.
adopted in 2018, so it must be for review, to mark it as reviewed. Yeah, I remember that now. Ellen's confirmed it's the way that our practice is, so.
Which one was that, Rachel?
This one is JFABD, Homeless Student Enrollment Rights and Services, so I'll make a motion to mark it as reviewed as of today's date.
No, that was the one that you removed, item number 5.
No, that was tonight.
That was tonight.
This was the homeless one. that
This is
they
the
did.
homeless one. It's already been
was number
adopted
5?
and revised and re-adopted.
Okay.
This is the McKinley-Vento Act one. All those in favor of marking it as reviewed?
Those were first.
6-0. Okay. And then the second one was JCA, assignment to schools. Again, this one had been adopted, had been revised, and it's about our, it's additional detail related to our attendance areas. Generally, students will be required to attend the school in the attendance area in which they reside unless the superintendent is granted special permission. And this has 4 points. We don't have multiple middle or high schools, so it's kind of a little bit of a silly policy. And then school bus transportation will not be provided for students attending school outside of their attendance area unless they can be accommodated in existing bus routes and schedules, or hardship is involved, or unless specific permission is granted by the school committee of superintendent. So I don't see any changes. I think we're looking for a motion to mark this one as reviewed as well. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? 5-0. Okay. Thank you for giving that great report, and I agree the MCAS presentation would be better viewed. The slides will be coming out to us tomorrow, and then Dr. Flaherty gave a great explanation of what the numbers mean for us and our students.
Can I ask that we move forward the program of studies vote so the CISL group approved the program of studies?
True, yes.
If we could approve the program, take the recommendation of CISL, then he can start with his course. He can't start his course recommendation.
Yes.
The kids can't start registering for classes until you all vote on the approval of that.
So the chair will make that motion to approve the Beverly High School Program of Studies. It was distributed in the packet that went to everyone. It's just basically the classes that run on a biannual basis, where, you know, there's this one and then this two, so the cohort can have access to a class that would otherwise be less enrolled. And Semi, yeah, semi, yes. It's like, yeah. So every other class year.
Isn't it?
I always get biannual and biennial.
Once every 2 years, so once in 4 semesters.
Once every
No,
2
it's
years,
once
that's
every
what it
2 years.
Oh, once every
That's what
2
we're saying.
years.
So there are some courses that run in the odd years and some courses that run in the even years. In that.
Like the follow-on
they're
class.
Like dueling
1-2,
electives.
1-2.
So you might have one elective in the 1 year and then it doesn't run the next year in lieu of another one.
So it includes the addition of a grammar class, and then the other one that was near and dear to me is the narrative storytelling, journaling, and digital storytelling. Was being added as an offering. There's no changes to math, as Ms. Robinson explained. The unleveling is not going to happen for this year due to a number of factors, and there was one other addition. Oh, environmental science, because it's part of one of our pathways now, was one of those classes that was only offered every other year, and it's now going to be consistently offered every single year since it is a pathway requirement. Ms. Visnick?
I just wonder if procedurally speaking, because this wasn't on the agenda, I know the agenda is things we reasonably expect to vote on. So I don't know, can we?
I would remind you that in prior years, it doesn't even come to the whole committee. It's just been the CISL has recommended it. I think this is a procedurally
I'm
trying to
fine
make
with voting
sure-
for it, and I respect the recommendation out of CISL. I just
Yeah.
I would just hate to be nabbed by somebody. Right, agendas are listed as things we can reasonably expect to visit. And so this and voting items are designated differently on the agenda. So this isn't on the agenda. I just want to make sure that, you know, from a, I don't know, is that Robert? Is it Robert
Robert's rule.
giving us a hard time?
Other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law, and I believe we're allowed to make motions at the table.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure.
Report out from a subcommittee.
It's a report out from a subcommittee. I think it's just double affirming what the CISL committee said, because there were just 2 members present.
In which case, we don't really need to vote. We just need to look across the table and tell
Well, I
Dr.
mean,
Chirocek to tell.
The agenda includes report from subcommittees, so I don't think there's a
Yeah.
problem.
Okay.
It's based.
But I appreciate you flagging it. You always got to pay attention.
Okay, so I made a motion that we approve based on the recommendation and the presentation that Mr. Thomas gave. Okay, just a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 6-0, okay. That will give students adequate time to review the course selection and start to make their courses.
Thank you.
Okay. Course schedules. The negotiating subcommittee has not met since our last session, and we do not currently have something on the books, but we will reactivate for the superintendent contract at some point. And policy subcommittee,
I'm waiting every day with my eyes covered, waiting for any trickle-down effects. So I would say to you, I think realistically, the most apt to come to us has to go through the MIAA first, right? So any given executive order has not trickled down trickled down to actual statutes and legislation at the federal level. And until that happens, nothing can trickle down to the state level. When it trickles down to the state level, I expect it to be enjoined for some amount of time. And so the one legislative piece that has changed relative to the executive orders is the participation of trans in sports. And our MIAA has a very different interpretation of what Title IX has meant, right? This is why in Massachusetts, boys can play on a volleyball team or on a field hockey team. And so that's one of only 3 states that have interpreted Title IX that way. So that'll be real interesting when it gets into the courts. But right now, there's nothing coming to us from the policy point of view.
okay, thanks. And then communications from school committee members that they wish to bring to the table. I think we've all received emails from a number of different people. Actually, the mayor may not have received this because it went to staff, but our student representative made it known, as did our CISL student reps, that the Addams Family School Edition musical will be performed at the high school. And the tickets are on sale. It is an assigned seat, like you get to pick your seat. So I would recommend visiting the website that is being published everywhere. And if you need the QR code, you can have this. It will be performed March 14th, 15th, both at 7 p.m. and then a matinee on Sunday, March 16th at 2 p.m. in our high school. The students were working hard on that. I shared an invitation for Monday evening, February 17th, 7 to 8:30 at Temple B'nai Abraham for the Healthmere Center for Cultural Engagement. They're partnering with our Human Rights Committee, the school committee, and other folks in the community to provide a community peace and art circle. And so you have that information. And Donna, thank you so much for making sure everyone was aware. The polar plunge that was scheduled to happen on Super Bowl Sunday has been moved to the 23rd, so not this Sunday, but next Sunday. There are plenty of opportunities still to pledge your support to the plungers or to sign up yourself if you wish to take a dip at Lynch Park to support our North Shore CDC. And then, as we mentioned, Food Fight, we were all invited from, an invitation from Green Beverly to join them at the Cabot. Next Wednesday evening, doors open at 5:30. And it is anticipated to run until 8 p.m. So the program begins at 6:30, runs to 8 p.m. But then we'll also have school committee here at our regular time. That's it from my perspective. If nothing else jumped out at anyone, I will now make a motion to vote to meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for Purpose 3, and not to return to open session. Purpose 3 is to discuss strategy with respect to and in preparation for collective bargaining with units A, B, C, and/or individual contracts, because an open discussion may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee, and not to return to open session. That is my motion.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick. I'll do a roll call. Mayor Cahill?
Yes.
Kim Coelho?
Yeah.
Karen Robinson?
Yes.
Jeffrey Silva?
Yes.
Lorinda Visnick?
Yes.
And Rachel Abel by a vote of 6-0 at 10:06. We are now in executive session, and we will not return to open session. Thank you, BevCam. Thank you for viewers at home. Thank you, Alicia. We'll be in touch tomorrow, and probably before you even view this video. Have a great night, everyone.